Kevin, what are you going to do?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I feel like it on certain days, but no, I'm not. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Howdy, y'all. Welcome in. Great to have you. Happy Tuesday, my dudes and dudettes. I am Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo. On the other side of the metaphorical glass, this beautiful upstate Tuesday AM. Boy, howdy when I tell you we got a show lined up for you today. Do I mean it? 4 of the most electrifying hours in sports talk entertainment that you're going to find anywhere starts right this very second. I was asked right before we came on the air by the great one, Lonzo, that guy right over there. He said, Rob Brown, I'm sure you've explained this before, but...
I didn't say Rob Brown. I know you have to say Rob Brown. We were having a discussion about this yesterday. You were a part of it. You didn't know you were a part of it because you were like being voyeured. But during that whole thing,
do not explain that any further.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you still got it. People who talk to each other don't say each other's names. So I did not say, hey, Rob Brown.
I mean, I think sometimes you start off by saying, hey, Lonzo, like I do. Hey, Lonzo, here's a question for you.
It's not necessary. I do not say, hey, Rob Brown, unless I'm being sarcastic.
So Lonzo did not say, hey, Rob Brown, but he said, hey. And that's how he started the conversation. You've explained this before probably, but why do you not play fantasy football? And the reason he brings this up is that ESPN is beginning today their fantasy football marathon, which checks out because we are in fantasy draft season. This is when most of you who play at some point this week, perhaps next week, if you have a lazy commissioner, or getting more than 5 people in their 40s together in one place at one time, as those of us who have that Venn diagram of nerd and sports know, it's like organizing, you know what it is? Fantasy football is D&D for jocks, all right? And
you've got the internet. You could Zoom or Google Meet or something.
That's not as fun.
Okay.
It's just not. It's not as fun as getting the fellas together and meeting up at the brewski bar and sitting around a big table and having a big chart and all that. Like, I understand a large portion of the appeal of fantasy football is the ability to gather with and watch ball with the boys and have something that is deeper than just we love football, specifically on A, the draft, and B, when you're dishing out your punishments at the end of the year.
No, that's the thing. It's not about any of that. It's about the punishment at the end. That's the reason why these things are so big now. It's because it's been publicized, it's been aggrandized, whatever, about all these really harsh and stupid punishments at the end of this thing. And so people are like, I want to see my guy, my friend, I want to see him suffer. So let's do this.
I would not argue with you that has been growing in popularity over the years. And as somebody who has had a segment on a nationally syndicated show dedicated solely and exclusively to embarrassing, shaming, or putting each other through physical pain and torment, like, I get it. It's part of the appeal. But I would also say, like, there's not much that I enjoy more than watching ball with the boys. Like, I love getting together with the amigos to watch some basketball or some football or some baseball.
What if this was a work thing? Can you do a fantasy football? I've only did it once back when it first started back in the day, which I don't remember when that was, but it was a long time ago. Can you do it with just 4 people?
Yeah. I mean, you can. It's kind of pointless because everybody's going to have a kick-ass team, but
Is it pointless? Because if, let's say, this team, talking about this show, were to beat that team, talking about wire to wire.
Oh, I see what you're setting up here.
And possibly some cross show punishment, I think that would be kind of fun.
To circle this back around to where we started here, there is a reason that I don't play fantasy football. There's actually a couple of reasons that I don't play fantasy football. The biggest reason that I do not play fantasy football is because I am this unfortunate mix of both competitive and obsessive compulsive. And over the years, it got to the point when it got to the point when I did play fantasy football that what ended up happening more often than not was that I was pouring hours of my life into setting, not even lineup, setting like a position in my lineup. I mean, I am deep diving past matchups, previous matchups. I'm looking at defensive trends, offensive trends. All right, this wide receiver has had his biggest games against teams that play a Tampa 2. This team's playing a cover 3 primarily, but they do it with a 3-4, not the 4-3. Quarterback may have a little more time in this one, yada, 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 yada. And it got to the point that I was genuinely, and this is where it stems from, when I was working back in Florida, I came to this realization one day that I was putting more effort into diagnosing and setting up my fantasy football lineup than I was actually diagnosing football for the sake of the radio program, which it was my job to host. Now, in some places that works. There are media outlets solely and exclusively dedicated to fantasy football. There is a Sirius XM channel that is just fantasy football. That's all those guys do. But I also understand that with those outlets hosted by dudes that's all they do is fantasy football evaluation, I'm not going to tiptoe in those particular tulips and bring anything to the table that those guys aren't going to bring. And if you are going to look for fantasy football advice, suggestions, whatever, you're going to go to the guys who, like, that's what they do for a living. That's what they do, is they deep dive the numbers to evaluate which matchups and what advantages you'll get by playing this guy or move that guy to the flex or, sit that guy and start that guy, whatever. That's somebody like me who dabbles in fantasy football. But realistically, my job is to come in and give you the X's and O's of this game and also to break down and analyze games over here, and also to give you the human interest side of sports. I had two options, which is either I just become the fantasy football guy, which, again, there's a lot of people who get paid a lot of money to do that all the time, or for me, put it to bed and actually dial in on football. And years ago, that was the decision that I made. I'm going to put fantasy football to bed, and I'm going to dive in on just being a good football dude, being a guy who can talk the X's and the O's as well as the human interest stories. So once I did that as a radio professional, because there was a season probably around 2015 or 16, I was probably like 7 years deep in the broadcasting career at that point. There was a point around that time that I was in like 8 leagues. I had like one listener run league on my show. I was in another listener league for our afternoon show. I had one league with buddies of mine from college and one league from all the frat bros from back in the day. And I had this league, and I was in like 8 leagues. And I was spending, on Tuesdays searching the waiver wire in 8 leagues. Wednesdays setting lineups for Thursdays or whatever day it was. Sunday morning, I was out of bed at like 7 a.m. on a Sunday because I had 5 hours to kick off, and it's my last chance. Plus, you gotta search the news, make sure none of your guys got a speeding ticket last night or went to jail or whatever. It just kind of got to the point where I was like, I can't do this. It's the unfortunate mix of obsessive compulsive and uber competitive created this world where fantasy football was eating up. And when I say hours, I don't mean 4 or 5. I mean was eating up like the same number of hours as doing my job.
Aren't there like doomsday leagues or something where you just pick your lineup and you're stuck with it for the entire season?
I'm sure that there are. There's all kinds of leagues that have popped up.
Why not do something like that? So you don't have to worry about changing anything. Who you got is who you got, and find out who wins at the end.
Because then what am I doing? Like, why am I paying it? I don't have any reason to pay attention to it now.
Well, then the draft means more.
But then I'm just having a draft, and then what? I'll see you guys in 18 weeks. Like, to me, that's the same amount of not fun.
I don't think that's how that works. I mean, if you do the draft and you're stuck with who you got, you're still going to be looking each week.
I don't think I can't do anything about it.
And
I am a big believer in the philosophy
you get reserves and stuff anyway in the draft, so you can switch your lineup.
That,
you just can't.
Then I'm right back to it.
Then you can't get anyone off the waivers. If your guys go out and get arrested or get hurt or something, you're just done.
See, but now we're like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, right? Like, if I'm gonna do a thing, I'm going ass into it. Like, I'm not gonna. Well, I want to do it, but like, not that much. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna. If I go to the gym to work out, I'm not gonna walk 10 minutes on the treadmill and call it a day. Like, no, I'm gonna kick my own ass. I'm going to make myself hurt for a couple of days to make this feel like it was worth it. I don't know. I don't think there's not a bet. I am incapable of striking a balance. I know that there are all these new leagues that are propping up where people are coming up with different rules. For instance, I saw one the other day called a guillotine league, and you do not play an opponent week by week. Everybody's scores are tabulated together, and the lowest scoring team in the league is eliminated. You're out. You're done playing fantasy football in this league. All the players on that team go onto the waiver wire. And once they're all on the waiver wire, you pick a time every week. Wednesdays at 5 p.m., the waiver wire opens up. And everybody can dive in. Every player on the eliminated team goes into the waiver pool. And whoever picks them up based on waiver wire order, whoever picks those guys up, you add it to your team. Next week, we run it back. Start on Thursday, you're locked in. Nobody plays head-to-head. Everybody just puts their score into a pool. Lowest score moves on. Could you imagine getting knocked out on one of those in week 2? Like, it would ruin my week. Now it'd ruin my season.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the fun of it. I mean, the fact that you're hanging on going, oh, am I going to – oh, look – Cole got eliminated. That's great.
See, but to me...
So you're more worried about you. The more fun is watching other people be eliminated.
No, see, that's the difference between me and you. That's the difference between me and you. You don't take joy in victory. You take joy in watching others defeat. I take joy in talking immense amounts of bleep because I beat you, not you lost.
All right, here's the thing.
Beat you.
You know, if other people are being defeated, I'm winning, right?
Right, but you understand where you're finding satisfaction in that equation is different. That's what I'm saying.
I'm all right, so my joy is in winning, but my joy is also in looking at somebody else and they lost. So it depends on who you're – if I'm going to get – all right, if we did one, and I know we're not going to, but if we did the 4 of us, I would enjoy every one of you guys losing. And I don't believe for a second that the 3 of you wouldn't enjoy any of us losing. The gloating you would do if we played 1 week and I lost and was out of it.
I don't disagree, but here's the other issue. If we are going to do fantasy football, I want it to be winner/loser is dictated by strength and success of general manager, not by you got lucky in the draft. I want it to be because
this is not fun for you. This is science, guy. This is we have to do it this way, guy. Not let's just have some fun. And fun is friendly competition. It's not, well, I got to scour the waiver wires. Oh no, I know I mean,
do you want to win or do you want to win? Like, I want to win. And to me, if I want to win, whether it's fantasy football or anything else,
you're saying
I am going to dive all the way in by doing the thing to the absolute best of my ability, not go, all right, drafted, see you guys in week 18.
So fun for you is obsessing.
No, fun for me is winning. But to win, you must obsess.
I don't think you have to obsess to win. I don't think so.
Name me a thing you've won at you haven't obsessed with.
Lottery.
You've won the lottery.
Yeah, like little scratch offs.
No. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's just like, spend a couple bucks and it's like, oh, look, I won $50.
I am sorry to inform you.
Didn't I go, oh, one more number?
I am sorry to inform you, you did not win. You found a winning ticket. There is a difference. You did nothing. Okay, let me rephrase that. Something that you've won, that you had to do a thing, not go to the gas station and buy a scratchy. I'm talking about a skill-based
dirty
talent
when you say scratchy.
You had to do a thing, because that's different. Let me put it this way.
I am the most unskilled person you know. So, anytime I win something, it's special.
I don't know. You've won 3 Crystal trophies.
I've won more than that.
But that's my point, right?
Yeah,
here you go, great one. Here you go. What if?
I don't want to bring that up right now.
What if we get an email in a month that says, all right, everybody, start putting your SCBA, Sports Talk Radio Show of the Year submissions. But here's the thing. This year, you're not producing any of those. We're just going to tune in on 3 days, 3 random days, and we're going to listen to one random segment from those 3 random days between here and there, and we're going to base our pick on that.
All right, who's listening?
Stop messing with my hypotheticals.
No, because
stop messing with it. You hypothetical
killer. If it's one certain person who's listening, he's going to find the worst one. Just automatically, he's just going to find the worst one. You know who I'm talking about. You know he would.
The point here is part of the fun, I assume, for you and us winning Crystal trophies is the knowledge that you, using your immense amount of talent, put together this submission that is the representation of the show. And you know that when we get handed one of those Crystal trophies, that the submission that you used your immense amounts of talent to put together and submit beat out the submissions made by other people who use their talents to get beat by you.
By the way, I'm only as good as the product. So, I mean,
that's fine, but you still got to put the damn thing together.
The whole chicken salad thing. I mean, so I listen. If the product wasn't good, I couldn't make something.
I don't disagree, but that's not the point. The point of this is, do you not obsess over those submissions?
So you're
annually?
saying I can't shame you into doing this just so we could have fun?
No, you can't.
Okay.
No, you can't. Because what ends up happening is I end up checking it every bleeping morning and mid-morning and late morning and afternoon and late afternoon and night.
What if I checked it for you and gave you a report?
Then I'm not playing fantasy football
every morning.
Then I'm not playing.
All right, here's your guys. Here's the available on waivers. What would you like me to do? What if I was your general manager?
No, then I'm not playing. What's the point? Now, with all of that being said,
I definitely wouldn't pick what you picked either. So I'll probably be like, yeah, you said this, but I knew what you really wanted.
With all of that being said, Rob Brown is not a fantasy football guy. However, I do want to make it abundantly clear. This week, next week, as you're getting ready for your draft, I am here for your fantasy football questions. You got a question? Which wide receiver do I got? Which quarterback do I get? Where do I draft my tight end, et cetera, et cetera? If you want to bounce it off me, I'm good at it. I just don't want to do it. I will help you manage your team. I'm just not going to do my own, because the combination of uber competitive and OCD, not a great mix for your boy. So, if you have fantasy football questions or thoughts or whatever, I got your back. All right? Lefty Tiger said, if you run a Rob Brown Show fantasy league, I'd love to get in. Lefty Tiger, love you. Not doing it. Not even for, you know how much I love y'all. You know how much I love y'all. I'm not even doing it for y'all. That's how much I don't want to do it, because it would wreck the next 18 weeks of my life. It just would. All right, that's going to do it on why Rob doesn't play fantasy football. The answer is because I am obsessive, compulsive, and unhealthily competitive.
Unless, of course, you guys keep asking him why.
Nope. I can go ahead and tell you. You want to know how?
New listeners each hour.
No. Lonzo, my wife said, will you set up a fantasy football league for me and the girls? I said, I will set it up. Yes, I will not help you run your team. She's like, why not? I was like, because it's all I will do. It's all I'll do. I told my wife no. You think I'm not going to tell Lefty Tiger no?
All right. She wants to win, and she believes that you can help her do that.
Good.
And you're still saying no.
Good, sweetheart.
Wow.
Listen to the show and text me your questions.
Not even a year later. God.
I'm not running your league for you. I'm not doing it. We got a lot of football to get to. AP Top 25 preseason poll dropped yesterday, and I heard the chorus of folks, we need to cancel the preseason polls. It's never going to happen, and we'll talk about why next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. QC Kinetics. Yeah. All right, guys, quick live read coming right back. Stay right there, please, and thank you.
What is up, friends?
so by 2 points. Texas number 1 with 1,552 points. Penn State number 2 with 1,547 points. Texas got 25 first-place votes. The Nittany Lions got 23. Ohio State checks in third with 11 first-place votes. And they check in about 70 points behind Penn State. Clemson got 4 first-place votes. They check in number 4 in the AP preseason top 25, just ahead of the University of Georgia, who got 1 first-place vote. Notre Dame is 6th. They are the first team without a first-place vote. Oregon, number 7, did get 1 first-place vote. No other teams got a first-place vote. Oregon 7, Alabama, LSU, Miami round out your top 10. Arizona State, the highest-ranked Big 12 team, at number 11. The Illini of Illinois at number 12. South Carolina checks in the AP preseason poll at number 13. Michigan and Florida round out your top 15. 16 through 25 goes SMU, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Indiana, Ole Miss, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Tennessee, and Boise State. So, when this AP poll dropped yesterday, I saw as is tradition, the annual chorus of sports writers, sports blabbers like myself, and fans across America with the echoes of we should do away with the preseason polls.
These polls are fun to talk about. There's only one poll that matters. Only one, and that's the CFP. That's the only one that matters. It's the only one that factors into who's going to be in the playoff and who's not. So until then, all these other polls are placeholders and stuff for people like us to get to talk about.
You are, respectfully, completely incorrect. This poll absolutely matters, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because
you didn't convince me last year. You're not going to convince me this year. You're never going to convince me. But, I mean, I am losing brain cells, so it's, I guess, eventually maybe.
Well, I know you work with me, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm doing the best I can. This poll does matter because the higher up that you are to start, the further to the top you are, the closer to the top you are when you lose. And the closer to the top you are when you lose, the easier it is to climb back to the top based on the rest of the results after that. If you are Texas starting off at number 1 and you are taking on Ohio State at number 3, if Texas loses that game to Ohio State, what do you think is reasonably and realistically the furthest that Texas would drop for number 1? I would say 7.
It depends on how bad of a loss it was. I mean, if it's a blowout, they're going to drop a lot farther. But if it's a close game, I would say 6.
That's why it matters. That's why it matters.
But how much do these polls factor into the CFP? They go, okay, well, the AP says this and the coaches poll says this, so we should fall somewhere in between. Or do they do what they're supposed to do and watch the games?
Well, I would love to say that we live in an ideal world and that's what happens. But here's the reality of the situation. Our job is to watch these games, and our job is to know these teams. Our job is to come in here on Monday mornings and be able to say, hey, 11 o'clock, or on Saturday, Oregon played Kansas State. Kicked off at 11 at Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon. The reality of this situation is that, and I know this for a fact, because I guarantee you that with a rare exception, and you can ask my wife, and she will be not happy to conclude the exact same thing that I'm about to tell you. You're not going to find, at least on a local sports radio level, you're not going to find many guys who are watching more college football than I am. You're just not. Most dudes that are in this industry, and this is not to poo-poo on them or anybody else. If you have an entertaining show, you have an entertaining show. It does not matter how much football you do or do not watch. This is something I've had to accept over the years. The only thing that matters is your show entertaining? And if the answer is yes and you watch 0 football, congratulations. And if the answer is you watch a gazillion games, but your show's not entertaining, then it doesn't matter if you're the biggest, smartest, big brain football boy in the world. But we're not the guys who are establishing who's going to the playoffs and not. In an ideal world, yes, every person on the college football playoff committee would watch every game of every team that is at least a legitimate contender to get in. Yes, I would like to think that when week 0 and 1 come to their conclusion, I would like to think that every member of that committee will have watched every game played by Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon, Alabama, LSU, Miami, Arizona State, Illinois, South Carolina, Michigan, Florida, SMU, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Indiana, Ole Miss, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Tennessee, and Boise State. I would like to think that every member of that. Do you realistically think that's happening? I don't. Not for a second. Not for a second. They may check in on the highlights. They may check in on the stats. They may check in on a lot of different stuff, but I'm going to wager, and I'm not going to name anybody specifically on the committee, but I'm going to guess that especially, respectfully, the old dudes on that committee, the ones that are based in New York or based in, wherever on the East Coast, do you think that they're hanging out watching Oregon play Oregon State and at a 10:30 p.m. kick in New York City?
I don't know if you've heard about this thing. It's called a DVR. So they don't have to watch it live when it happens. They can watch it the next day. They can do that.
I appreciate you being a committee apologist. I respect it.
Or being old.
But realistically speaking,
which I am.
Realistically speaking, no. I do not for a second believe that every member of the committee is watching every game of every contender. There's just not the time. There's just not. I do my best, and I don't get them all in. And I take this very seriously, the watching of the football. So,
all right, I'm looking. I looked up the roster of the CFP people for this year, and there may be one guy in his 70s. Everybody else looks like they're around my age or younger. So, I don't know, dude. I don't think you can blame it on. I get that you think you need to watch the game live and you don't, especially if you're watching it in an analytical way, which these guys are without fandom. They're watching it like a coach would. So they may get sent coach's film. We don't know that.
You're perfectly fine. Perfectly correct. You are not wrong.
Sit down in the afternoon, watch a couple games. Next day, sit down, watch a couple games.
Maybe so. Again, let's for the sake of assumption, let's for the sake of discussion and assumption, assume that every member of the committee watches every single game of every single contender. Let's say they open the year with 25 teams in the AP Top 25, and they watch every single one of every single game of every single team. All well and good. I know that as seriously as I take this, I take into consideration the input and opinions and analysis of a lot of people across the sportosphere. And I do that because while I like to think I'm a pretty good football guy, shockingly, I know, am not an infallible football analyst. I'm not. I'm going to miss stuff. Other guys are going to see stuff. Other gals are going to see stuff that I don't. I take into a lot other people's opinions. And so these AP polls, these coaches' polls, whatever, yeah, they're going to have an impact. But here's the best part about all of it. The AP preseason top 25 poll, 1,000% has an impact on how the season rankings shape up. Now, if you're number one and you lose 4 games, yeah, you cooked yourself. But if you're number one and you have a similar strength of schedule to number 4 and you lose a game around the same time as number 4, the likelihood is you will still be ahead of number 4. That's just how these numbers work out annually. But even that isn't the reason that the AP preseason poll, the AFCA coaches preseason poll, the USA Today preseason poll, all these polls are still going to not only come out preseason, but they're going to come out for a reason that's bigger than, as Alonzo opened the segment with, they're fun to talk about. And they are. But that's not the reason they do them. I'm going to tell you what that is when we come back. Rob Brown, the Great One, Alonzo, and you. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's The Fan Upstate. Right back, guys. Stay right there for me.
Let's go. We're going to go.
The AP preseason poll dropped yesterday. We ran over it in the last segment of the show. Teams 1 through 25, according to the Associated Press, before the season gets going. And cool fun, we're going to talk about who's where and why later, because as Lonzo appropriately and accurately pointed out, that regardless of how you feel about the existence of preseason polls, if nothing else, especially in these last, what are we sitting at? 9 days until next Thursday night, when we all gather around our television sets, pour our beverage of choice, pull our smoked meats of choice off of the smoker, and get prepared for kickoff of week 0 of college football. I know, and I am quite excited. As we all get set to kick back and participate in a little college football, there is a reason that it's irrelevant how you feel about it, how I feel about it. I honestly think that it would be a good thing if we did not release our first poll until week 6 or 7 of the season. Let's let teams get 5 or 6 or 7 games under their belt before we determine who or what they are. Why? Well, because otherwise you might start your season with, I don't know, Florida State ranked number 10 in your AP preseason poll, only to find out at the end of the year they were 2-10. And had you waited 3 weeks last year, you'd have known Florida State's not a top 10 team. Last year, the University of South Carolina started the season not just unranked. They did not receive a vote in the AP preseason top 25. Colorado got a vote. Auburn got 2. Kentucky got 3. Appalachian State got 4 votes in the AP preseason top 25 last year. South Carolina got 0. The Gamecocks ended the season ranked number 13 in the country after knocking off Clemson. Preseason polls are relatively unreliable, but I would also point out that you started the year with Georgia ranked number 1. You ended with them ranked number 5. Ohio State ranked number 2. They ended the regular season ranked number 7, but obviously would go on to win the Natty. You started with Oregon ranked number 3 with 1 first-place vote. They ended the season ranked number 1 with all 62. You started with Texas ranked number 4. They ended number 2. Alabama ranked number 5. They ended number 11. They're not egregious, but they're not perfect either. However, that's not the reason that these polls exist. That's not the reason that they come out preseason to an echo, a chorus of end preseason polls from sports writers and bloggers and talkers and fans alike. Would you like to know why it is that these polls drop at the beginning of the year? I'll go ahead and enlighten you. It starts Saturday, August 23rd. Do you know what we have that night? Saturday, August 23rd, we have number 22 Iowa State taking on number 17 Kansas State. Genuine question. How many people, and I'm not going to say you specifically, Armada, because you are the best of the best and the brightest of the brightest. You're like Will Smith in Men in Black. You're here because you're the best of the best. That's Rip Torn, which is maybe the greatest stage name in the history of stage names. You're here because you're the best of the best. But the casuals out there, the casual college football fan, and I'm not hating on the casual college football fan, that's a lot of people. But a casual college football fan may not know a ton about Kansas State and Iowa State unless they are from the state of Kansas or the state of Iowa. But you know what they do know? What they do know is that on August 23rd, we got a top 25 matchup starting at noon live from Dublin, Ireland.
So you don't think, hypothetically, that casual fan goes, that game doesn't matter?
No.
They're not ranked in the top 10.
No.
What do I care about that game?
I think they might look and go, hey, that's two teams with a number out front. Ergo, two teams with aspiration. Why not? It's at noon. It's the only game on. Why not? I think that you look at a team like number 25, Boise State. And if you paid attention at all, even casuals know, Boise State made the playoffs last year. Granted, it was because of Ashton Janty, but Boise State is the pick of a lot of media members, hence them being ranked 25 in the preseason poll. A lot of people going to go, that team probably back this year as the G5 representative, as the little engine that probably can't, but maybe can, but possibly could. There's a number out next to him. They're also going to look at the week one games that start on Saturday. Number 1, Texas versus number 3, Ohio State. Now, to all of us, as we are, once again, the best of the best, the brightest of the brightest, we are going to look at that and go, that's two teams with national championship aspirations on the line. And not like, like number 17 and number 22. That's number 1 and number 3. And that sentence is the reason preseason polls aren't going away. Because we are kicking off with number 1 versus number 3. That is the first game on Saturday, August 30th. And that's not to say you got Alabama at Florida State. That's number 8 taking on a team that was a disaster last year and has a real opportunity to put on a billboard that we back. That's not taking into consideration that it's 7:30 p.m. right on down the road in Death Valley 2. Clemson and LSU, 9 versus 4. The sex appeal of having those numbers out front of teams early in the season. Later in the season, it might mean a little bit more to the casual fans. But if you are a fan who's like, not like me, on Saturdays, starting on the 23rd, on those Saturdays, your boy is going to have, right now, no less than 5 screens in the Bro Cave. And I gotta tell you, there's a very good chance that next Thursday or Friday, Rob Brown is going to pull everything off the wall and hang 2 more big screens up because I got room. Somebody like me, you don't have to talk me into it. But somebody that's more casual, somebody that's I'm going to, I'll watch a game if there's a big game on. The college version of the people that show up for the Super Bowl party. You know who I'm talking about. That you got your buddy that you meet him or her at the bar because y'all watch every game on NFL Sunday. And then the Super Bowl rolls around. And you throw the party, and all of a sudden, Mr. or Mrs. your buddy, who you don't see all regular season, not only do they show up, but they're big Chiefs guys. They're big Eagles guys. They're big Bills guys, Ravens guys, whoever's in the Super Bowl guys. They're big those guys. You hadn't seen them all year long. You had no idea they even liked football. You, in fact, quite the opposite, assumed they didn't like football. Because you meet at the bar every Sunday for football, and they never show up. But now all of a sudden they're rolling up and they got the T-shirts and the face paint. And they're big whatever guys. I had to. I enjoyed it for the record. The Super Bowl a couple of years ago when Tay-Tay showed up and she was Travis's girlfriend for the first time for that first Super Bowl. I went to a Super Bowl party. The same Super Bowl party that I have been going to since I got here. We got one dear group of friends of mine, Chris and Becky, amazing people. And they throw a Super Bowl party annually. And the wife and I go every single year. And usually, there's 12, 14, 16 of us. That year, there was 28 people in their house. And about half of them weren't there because they cared about football. They were there because Tay-Tay's boyfriend was in. Casuals. Again, fine. We had a ball. It was great. In fact, I had more fun than anybody because I kind of became the guy that was like explaining to the gals who were there for Trav's girl what was happening and why. I love it. It's great because if I can get hooked, bang, I got new football fans in the audience, right? That's good for me.
Yeah, that's why. Okay.
That's good for me. My wife was there. Relax, bud. Relax.
I'm voice of the people over here. That's all.
So the point is, these numbers that we can arbitrarily and subjectively stick out next to the names of college football teams before they take the field for the first time, before the marching band hits the first note, before Corso puts on the first and last mascot head, before Pat takes his shirt off, before the first I is dotted, before the first Emgo Blue banner is slapped, before Osceola plants the spear, or Mr. Two Bits does his thing, or they run down the hill, or Cocky comes out of the cockaboose, we just subjectively and arbitrarily stick some numbers next to the teams that we think are going to be the best. But they are doing that because it makes things sexy. Iowa State at Kansas State is probably not going to get a ton of love on Saturday, August 23rd at noon from Dublin, Ireland, outside of the Midwest. However, if we can sell you that Avery Johnson and Kansas State are a legitimate threat to win the Big 12, and therefore a legitimate threat to any team from the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten that were to make the playoffs. You might catch Kansas State, and you might catch Avery Johnson. And if Avery Johnson is indeed a Heisman Trophy candidate, as some are projecting him to be, Kansas State might be a threat. They might be. If that dude is the Lenora Sellers of the Midwest, they might be a legitimate threat to you. So, now, all of a sudden, I got to think if you're Clemson, if you're South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, if you're a team that genuinely believes that you are a contender this year, now Kansas State matters. And oh, by the way, they're taking on Iowa State. They're taking on the Cyclones. They're taking on a top 25 team. They're going to get competition right out of the gate. It's sexy, man. It's sexy. It's like how half of y'all tune into the show and watch the stream because I'm bringing the sex appeal to the internet every day, and I don't charge you $9.99 a month for it. It's that, but Kansas State and Iowa State. If Clemson LSU theoretically is a game that has sex appeal just on what those two brands are, but now we've got all these other narratives going on. We've got, is Brian Kelly on the hot seat? Is this a genuine referendum on whether the Dabo Swinney philosophy is viable in 2025? If the answer to those are yes, this is sexy enough. But OBT dubs. Now it's top 10. Now it's two teams that don't just have national championship aspirations. Now they have championship aspirations and they're starting on the pole. They're at the front of the field when the green flag drops on the 30th. That's why these preseason polls come out. Notre Dame, Miami, opening Sunday, 7:30 p.m. The Irish and the Canes, number 6 versus number 10. Sexy. Maybe I'll watch football all day on Saturday because it's week 1. And I will. But now it's Sunday. And now the wife, not mine, because we'll be in Atlanta at South Carolina, Virginia Tech. But maybe some wives, some husbands out there, they go, babe, you watched college football all day yesterday. Do you really have to watch more? And you can go, it's number 6 versus number 10, sweetie. This is potentially a national championship eliminator game right out of the gate. Yeah, I got to watch this. Sexy. College football's bringing sexy back. That's why we have this poll. Now, with that being said, in the next hour, let's talk about who starts where in the poll and why it matters and why they will or will not be where they end up. We'll do that. A huge announcement from Clemson and South Carolina. They're going to have something in common that fans on both sides of the spectrum hate. I'll tell you what that is coming up after the water cooler cheat sheet in the next hour. Before we get to any of that, here is the best 60 seconds of your life today. Lonzo Sports Flash.
Lighten up, Cruz. The Associated Press preseason top 25 dropped yesterday with Texas Longhorns holding the top spot for the first time in school history. Texas checked in 5 points ahead of Penn State, closest margin from first to second since 1998. Ohio State holds the third spot ahead of number 4 Clemson and number 5 Georgia. Notre Dame is 6th and Oregon is at number 7. Alabama, LSU, and Miami round out the top 10. South Carolina checked in at 13. The Milwaukee Brewers won a 10th consecutive game for the second time this season, making them the first MLB team since 2019 with multiple winning streaks of at least 10 games. 7-1 win over Pittsburgh also made the Brewers the third team over the past 30 years to win the first 10 games in August. 2 more Team USA Ryder Cup slots have been claimed. U.S. Open winner J.J. Spaun, who checked in second to Justin Rose in the FedEx St. Jude Championship after playoff, and Xander Schauffele. Point out again, I didn't write that. So sometimes, even though I do practice, going to have to do more editing. Second, Justin Rose, the FedEx St. Jude Championship, and 2-time major winner Xander Schauffele will both join Scotty Scheffler.
I'm bringing sexy back. Cruz, you little son of a gun. How you doing, buddy? I know that guy.
Okay. I would like to also talk to HR about you saying sexy too many times. It's making me uncomfortable.
Did I correctly use adjectives to describe myself? Statistically, one of the best teams Dabo has ever sent. Hey, look, Cruz, national championship aspirations. I don't know what to tell you. You get it done, and I don't even think you have to win the Natty. If you are a legitimate contender.
Why are you going New Jersey accent here? I don't know.
Because I was about to morph into Mick from Rocky.
Ah, okay.
You got to be a contender, kid. You want to be a contender.
Yeah, catch that chicken. You didn't last year, though, did you? Sorry, I couldn't, Things happened that I'm absolutely proud of. I'm not going to act like I'm not. I can't read, can't math. I can still snark, though. Once that's gone. Park me in front of the TV, give me a controller, and that's where I'll be for the end of my days. Every time I hear this promo, I picture Cole as that camel.
As what?
As the camel. What day is it? Do you know what? Just his cadence in that first part. Just. Hey, there's something we want to talk about. Hashtag Bachelor in Paradise.
I never, I don't judge people who got into it. It just was never for me.
Makes me think of one particular person.
Exactly. Again, not here to judge. I watch way more wrestling than I.
I'm absolutely
as
here
an
to
adult
judge.
should.
And I would judge that forever.
Hey!
Bless you.
Thanks. I can't tell if I have one more. Hey! I did.
You're 47! What are you gonna do?
Oh, man. It stings because it's not true, but it feels like it's true. I just sneezed twice before we came on the air. And I'm not going to lie. My right shoulder blade now hurts from sneezing. I feel as rested and as energetic as I have felt in a long time. I have gotten at 7 to 9 hours of sleep 2 consecutive nights in a row. I don't think I've done that since I was in my early 30s. But I just sneezed twice, and I'm relatively sure that I just strained, sprained, pulled, or otherwise injured something in my right shoulder blade because it is on fire.
See if someone has one of those impact guns or something. I mean, I'm not going to do it for you. They may have an extension. I don't know.
No, but I do have to say, we do have a wonderful opening for if there were any massage parlors in the area that would like an endorsement. I will straight up trade you.
Are they still called massage parlors?
I think so. I don't think they're letting Bob Kraft take that away from them.
Yeah, okay. All right.
If there are any massage parlors that would like an endorsement, I will straight up trade you. You just come in here one morning a week and do a 15-minute back rub while me and Lonzo are on the air, and we'll endorse the hell out of you for it. Straight up. Not even the weird stuff. I'll keep the shirt on. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't want a massage, but Rob wants.
Fine, I'll take 2. I'll take Lonzo's.
Yeah, I mean, because it's just not going to help. I mean, there's just so much pain. When you're done, then the pain's right back.
Fair enough. I on the other hand, God, I love a good massage. Love a good massage, man. I do.
Do you get your toenails done too at the same time?
You know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. About 6-7 months ago, the lady friend said, we do a lot of stuff that you like to do for dates. Can we do a me date? And I said, yes, ma'am, we can. What would you like to do? And she said, taking you out of the comfort zone, let's go get manicures and pedicures. Or, as she said, let's go get a mani-pedi. And I said, okay, I love you that much that I will let someone else touch my feet. I love you that much. So we did. And I kind of liked it. NGL kind of liked it.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice.
You're probably not ticklish like me.
No, I am.
Someone would get kicked in the face, and it's not my fault.
That was honest to everything. My biggest fear. I was like, some poor little girl some poor lady is going to go to rub the bottom of my feet because I am unfathomably ticklish on the bottom of the feet. It is the wife's favorite thing is if it'll jolt me out of a sleep. If I take a nap, she sees the bottom of a foot exposed, just finger up the bottom of that foot. I am jolted awake, ready to go for a run in a marathon.
Not up just you can't go up. Okay, all right.
Just a run of the fingers up the foot. I don't need a Red Bull at that point. So, I was like, if this lady rubs the bottom of my feet and I kick her in the face, she is going to go through the wall on the other side of the nail salon. And
wow, you got that kind of leg power? You think you could project a smaller human being to a wall?
Dude, I'm like Saquon Barkley if you touch the bottom of my feet.
Okay.
Touch the bottom of my feet, I can squat a Buick like Jalen Hurts. And I'm going to keep it a buck. She started, and I was nervous AF because they do they trim the nails down. They get the cuticles all cleaned up. They get you all spruced up. And then they take this real thick exfoliating lotion, all right? It's like lotion, but it's got sand in it. And they rub up and down your leg, and I'm going to keep it a buck with you. I about needed a cigarette when that was done. And I don't smoke. And then they got to the bottom of the feet, and I forgot because my intention was to tell this lady, calves are good, top of the foot's good, toes are fine, don't touch the bottom of my feet because I'm likely to kick your head off your shoulder like a rock'em sock'em robot. And then she ran that first thumb up the bottom of the foot, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And so now, about every month and a half, the lady and I go get a mani-pedi. And I'm going to keep it a buck, fellas. You can mock, you can make fun of me all you want to. I don't care. It's nice. And when they do the hands and they do the massage right there on the fleshy part underneath the thumb, oh.
Do you have to put your bare feet on the floor at any point?
Nope. They have this little you sit back in a leather recliner And you can bring your drink in there with you. Sit back and I love the recliner. They get a little tub. They fill it up with like scalding hot water. You just dip the feet right into that scalding hot water and you just sit there and relax. And then the lady comes by and she like lifts up a little pad. You put one foot out and she does that leg and that foot while the other one's in the hot water. And then you switch and she does that leg and that foot while the other one's in the hot water. And then you put them back in the hot water and she rinses them off for you. And then she drains the water and then she dries them off with like the softest towel in the world. I'm not going to lie. The first time she started going through the process, I am like, what kind of soft-ass, pampered SOB am I? And then she finished, and I was like, so same time tomorrow? If I could get that done, if that happened to me while I was on the show, the tone of the show would change entirely. Hey, guys, welcome to the Rob Brown Show here on the Fan Upstate.
By the way, I just want to say, if you're watching on the stream, Rob's shirt is not blurred out. It looks blurred out on the, like it says something that we had to blur it out. To look at it, it looks blurred out on the screen. Yeah. Don't do that.
What, the Eddie Guerrero?
Yeah, that's not what it looked like.
All right, we have got a lot to get to, a lot to talk about. We're going to talk quite a bit of college football here in this hour of the show. We got more AP Top 25 discussion to have, and I go looking for ways that we can take the Gamecocks of Columbia, South Carolina, and the Tigers of South Carolina, Clemson. And we can all meet in a kumbaya circle. We can all gather around a common enemy.
Who wants to do that?
Because, the rivalry.
Yeah, rivalry should be a rivalry. I don't need a come together moment where we shake hands and stuff. I mean, what's that? We're 9 days away from what you said from football season. Why we want to be friendly?
Because I'm trying to set up a segment. That's the reason why. And I'm going to tell you what the segment is, because I have found today's kumbaya moment. I have found our come together right now, over me moment for both the Gamecocks and the Tigers. And I'm going to tell you what that is coming up in the next segment of the radio program. But it is 7:07 in the AM portion of the day. You have now less than 53 minutes till you've got to get to the office. Sit yourself down in that chair, get logged in, respond to the emails, work for like 7 to 9 minutes on that project that you super duper told the boss you'd have done by the weekend. We'll see. But then you get to the best part of the day. The part of the day where you walk down the hallway and you go talk to Ben. And when you go talk to your coworker, Ben, he's down in janitorial services. Super dude. Absolute sweetheart. And loves some football. You don't want to embarrass yourself. You want to know what's going on in the world of sports. And if you want to know what's going on in the world of sports, worry not, my dear friends. That's what Lonzo and I are here for. And that's why we do this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar? The almanac of the absurd? And the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying,
It's definitely a no for me, dog.
even before they take their first bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the water cooler cheat sheet on the Fan Upstate.
Here is the water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories that you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports this morning with your coworkers. When you do, this is what you are going to be talking about. Let's dive right in. And I see you all on the stream chat. I'm coming back to you. But we got to do this. Item number 1. The college football AP preseason top 25 has dropped. Boise State, last year's representatives from the group of 5/6/7/8, maybe, is also in this year's AP Top 25. They will start the year off at number 25, a spot behind number 24, Tennessee. They follow Texas Tech, Iowa State, Ole Miss, and Indiana inside the top 20. At number 19, the Colt, Texas A&M. They trail Oklahoma, Kansas State, the ACC's runner-up last year. SMU is at number 16, one spot behind the Mighty Gators of Florida at number 15. Michigan is 14. They trail South Carolina, the Gamecocks, checking in at number 13 in the AP preseason poll. They trail Illinois, Arizona State, Miami is number 10. 9 through 1 goes this way. LSU, Alabama, Oregon, the lowest-ranked team, receiving 1 first-place vote, 1 spot behind number 6, Notre Dame, the highest-ranked team, who received no first-place votes. They trailed Georgia with 1. Clemson is the number 4 team, according to the AP Top 25. Clemson did receive 4 first place votes. The Buckeyes of Ohio State are number 3, 11 first place votes. The Big Ten opponent of Penn State got 23. They are number 2 in the country, 5 points in total behind number 1 Texas, who received 25 first place votes. So that's 25 through 21. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk about who's too high, who's too low, who's going to finish where they are, higher than they are, lower than they are, etc., etc., etc. Fun little quick tidbit, by the way. Speaking of Texas, first time in the school's history that they are ranked numero uno in the AP preseason poll. They are also, great one, courtesy of your number 3 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. The Longhorns of Texas are the first team in AP preseason poll history to be an underdog in week number 1. The Buckeyes of Ohio State are a 2.5 point favorite, keeping in mind that you get 2.5 or 3 for being the home squad. It's effectively a pick'em game between the Longhorns and the Buckeyes of Ohio State. But the Buckeyes do get the 2.5 to 3 for being in the crib. That makes Texas the first ever team entering the season number 1 in the AP preseason poll to be an underdog in week 1. Let's get to item number 2. I don't care if you don't like it. It's one of my favorite things that is going to happen on the sports calendar this year. The Ryder Cup. Team USA, yeah, taking on Team Europe next month. Well, yeah, the teams are starting to round themselves out. 2 more additions solidified themselves to both the European and American teams for next month's Ryder Cup. U.S. Open winner J.J. Spaun, by way of falling to Justin Rose in a playoff at last weekend's FedEx St. Jude Classic. That is the St. Jude Classic. I was just really dumb when I typed out the sports flash this morning. By way of checking in second to Justin Rose, has solidified a spot on the Ryder Cup team. He will be joined by Xander Schauffele. They will both join number 1 golfer ranked in the world, Scotty Scheffler, on the U.S. team when they take on Europe in the Ryder Cup. Spaun moved to number 2 in the U.S. team point standings and qualified for the team with his 3rd runner-up finish of the season in the St. Jude Championship in Memphis. He will be a Ryder Cup rookie. J.J. Spaun ranked 8th in the official world golf ranking, lost to England's Justin Rose on the 3rd hole of a sudden death playoff at TPC Southwind. He secured his spot over on Team Europe. By way of being the most hard luck golfer in the history of the friggin' game, Tommy Fleetwood has secured enough points to join Masters champion Rory McIlroy on the European team. So now we know at least a few of the guys that will be competing at the Ryder Cup next month. There are some other names that are still in the mix for Team USA and Team Europe. Russell Henley, Bryson DeChambeau, Harris English, all in the top 6 in points. Keegan Bradley will make 6 captain's choices August 27th, 3 days after the Tour Championship at East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta. Justin Thomas is 7th. Colin Morikawa, Ben Griffin, Bradley, Maverick McNeely, and Andrew Novak are all in the running as well. Just outside, Brian Harman, Cameron Young, Patrick Cantlay, and Sam Burns are in the mix for roster spots. We'll see who makes this squad. Let's get to item number 3. The Nevada Supreme Court yesterday sided with former Las Vegas Raiders coach John Gruden in his lawsuit that alleged the NFL leaked damaging emails to the media before he was forced to resign from the team in 2021. Now, interesting about this result, and I do think that the language of what was determined is very important here. In their 5-2 ruling, justices did not determine whether or not the league had leaked Gruden's emails, but they found that the league's decision to force his complaint into arbitration proceedings, which were overseen by Roger Goodell, was, quote, unconscionable, end quote. And there's your SAT word of the day, unconscionable. Work that in as many times as you can. Over under 3.5. The court did not find that the NFL leaked John Gruden's emails. The court did not find that the arbitration itself was egregious. The league did not find that John Gruden was forced out of the head coaching job for the Las Vegas Raiders. What they did find is that the NFL to force his complaint into arbitration overseen by Roger Goodell was inappropriate. It is the reverse of the old we investigated ourselves and we found we did nothing wrong joke that we so often make about authority figures at different entities and organizations that say, yeah, there's a problem and we're going to look into it. And then they come back 2 weeks later and they did. Well, after a full investigation into ourselves, we have determined that ourselves did no wrong. So we're good. Thanks for being here. Don't talk about it anymore. What the 5-2 ruling says is that they did not determine if the emails leaked that contained some level of racially charged language at the very least. They did not find that the NFL released or leaked those emails. Not enough proof was brought to the table for that. What they did say is, if you were going to have some sort of hearing, some sort of arbitration, some sort of judgment made about John Gruden, it probably should not have been overseen by the guy who runs one of the allegedly aggrieved parties. Yeah, that part is kind of understandable. As a former employee, Gruden should not have been bound by a provision in the NFL Constitution mandating arbitration for such complaints, according to the court. The court wrote, quote, by its own unambiguous language, the NFL Constitution no longer applies to Gruden. If the NFL Constitution were to bind former employees, the commissioner could essentially pick and choose which disputes to arbitrate. Basically, they are saying that once John Gruden resigned from the position of head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, that he was no longer an employee of the league. And as he was no longer an employee of the league, any hearings regarding his behavior, his actions, his future within the league should not be overseen by the guy who is in charge of the actions, decisions, and future of the league. It should have gone somewhere else. What does this mean for the future of John Gruden? I don't know. Does this mean that he is welcome back into the league as a coach, should he so desire? I don't know. Does this mean that even if he did want to come back into the league, that any teams would hire him? I don't know. What I do know is Chucky's kind of become a social media star with the folks over at Barstool. Over the last year and a half or so, he has been hanging out with a lot of teams. He was at Athens, hanging out with the University of Georgia the other day, and Chucky said that he still wants to coach and that coaching in the Southeastern Conference would, quote, be a dream. Could we see Chucky back? Might this free up some parties who may have otherwise been concerned about Chucky to give him an opportunity? Or is there too much attached to the name, too much baggage around Chucky to bring him back? We'll find out. We'll keep an eye on this story as it develops. Hey, our live stream is up, facebook.com/TheFanUpstate, The Fan Upstate on Twitter, The Fan Upstate on YouTube. Go find us, like us, follow us, subscribe to us, and turn the notifications on because we're live every weekday from 6 till 10 a.m. And do the same for The Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. We got Jacob in the chat. We got Cruz in the chat. We got Steven in the chat. And they are just having a dialogue over there in our chat. You can come chat with the Armada. But they've had some interesting conversation and discussion. And I'm going to bring it on the radio. We're going to make Jacob and Cruz the stars of the next segment. You could be in that mix, too. Go to the live chat. Text us on the Hub City Spartanburger text line, 844-326-3663. Call that number, get on the air. Let's talk football here on The Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, Cruz, Jacob, y'all stay right there because I'm going to discuss your conversation. I'm going to conversation your conversation when we come back. I say with great regularity that I firmly, genuinely, and honestly believe that the show is better when there are more voices involved in it. This is why I tell you the Hub City Spartanburgers text line phone number, 844-326-3663. That's also the number to call in and be on the show. That's why I tell you to tweet me at The Rob Brown Show 24/7, 365. That's why I tell you to hit me in the DMs, to follow me on Instagram, to follow me on TikTok, and to join us on our live chat, our live stream at facebook.com/TheFanUpstate, The Fan Upstate on Twitter, The Fan Upstate on YouTube, The Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. Well, I don't regularly take a whole conversation that is playing out on the chat and decide, I really like this, I'm going to have a talk about it. But I am here because Cruz and Jacob are both in the chat right now on our live stream. Go again, find it, follow it, be a part of it. Every morning you can chat and have your voice heard on the show there as well. When we were talking about the AP Top 25, I mentioned that Clemson and LSU playing in the season opener for each. The Clemson Tigers hosting the LSU Tigers in Clemson, South Carolina. And the conversation we were having at the time is that while I think most of us agree that preseason polls are, I think, not the worst thing in the world, but also I don't think they should come out until like week 6 or 7 when we really have a much better idea about what teams are. Otherwise, you might end up with an unranked 0 votes received South Carolina finishing in the top 13, or a top 10 Florida State ending up 2-10. And I pointed out that Clemson v. LSU, I don't really think needs numbers out front of the two team names to be sexy if you are a follower of college football, because on one hand, you got Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers trying to prove that, no, seriously, it was going to take some time, but we're ready to go. And more importantly, rumors that Brian Kelly, should he fail to meet certain benchmarks this year, could be on the hot seat at the end of it. On the flip side, and this was the take that fired old Cruz up in the chat, I believe, I said on the flip side, Clemson's preseason drama that leads to this game being a little bit more interesting than just a top 6 matchup, two sexy teams getting on, is the fact that for a lot of people, the belief is that this year is a referendum on the philosophy of one Dabo Swinney. Is Dabo's philosophy still valid, still successful in the year 2025? And that's not to say that Clemson must win a national championship to prove that it is. Only one team can, and it's very hard to do. I'm saying he better be close, right? Being 9-3, winning the ACC, getting in and getting blown out in playoff game number 1 ain't gonna do it. Being 11-1, being 12-0, winning the ACC, getting in, winning a playoff game or 2, that'll do it. So I think the referendum is a fair one, is a legitimate one to say we will find out at the end of this year if the Dabo philosophy is good or not. Cruz popped in and said, this guy, pointing at me, must be a casual college football fan. This Clemson team is statistically one of the best teams Dabo has ever assembled. Sure. I would also point out last year Mike Norvell's Florida State squad was one of the best statistically that Florida State had ever assembled. They went 2-10. Chemistry matters a lot. And in fact, I would make the argument that chemistry might matter more now than it ever has in college football. Chemistry, putting a team together while utilizing, if you do, the transfer portal, matters quite a bit. So, numbers-wise, statistically speaking, yes, it means a lot. That's why Clemson is a top 4 team, according to the AP Top 25. A top 6 team, according to the coaches poll. But then it sparked a discussion. Jacob said, call me casual if you want, bud. Cade is still the quarterback. He's free to prove me wrong. Cruz said, Cade is projected to be one of the top quarterbacks to be taken in the 2026 NFL draft. Jacob said, predictions are just that. Predictions. Like I said, he's free to prove me wrong. but I don't buy it. Let's wait and see how his performance is, and then we can talk. He's historically been very good, but if he can't handle pressure, If he can prove he can handle pressure, then I'll shut up. Cruz said, do you buy the Arch Manning hype, the guy who has barely touched the field in 3 years? Jacob said, not at all. He has a lot to prove. I'm a Gamecock fan, and I don't even buy the Lenoris hype. He's got work to do. Cruz responded and said, I'm a Clemson fan, and I buy the Sellers being a fantastic athlete hype. I need to see what he does with a good O-line around him so he doesn't have to run for his life. Jacob responded and said he's a great athlete, but he has to stay healthy, and we have to have a running game. Receivers have to step up and make catches, and our line has to block. If all those things don't happen, he will try to be Superman and end up hurt. And the boys kept going on for a hot minute there. But I think you got the meat and potatoes of the conversation. And the meat and potatoes of the conversation is something that I think I've been hitting on for a couple of weeks now. And I was hitting on it before, though it really, I think, for me, jumped to the forefront of the conversation during SEC Media Days. The conversation being that I think if we look at the AP preseason top 25, and let's look at the AP preseason top 25, not the coaches poll. Let's look at the AP. Let's look at Texas. Arch Manning. As mentioned by the boys in the chat, question marks about Arch Manning. And I think fair to have him. Arch has 2 starts. Arch has a bunch of spot play outside of that. Steve Spurrier took a bunch of heat about a month and a half ago when he said, if Arch Manning is indeed all that and a bag of potato chips, how did he not beat out 7th-round draft pick Quinn Ewers for the starting job, especially when he got into the playoffs and you were looking for a national championship and you were a legitimate contender? And I said, that's a very fair question. It's a very fair question. And at SEC Media Days, I would make the argument that about 75% of the people that were there said, Arch is football Jesus. And about 25% of the people said, I got questions about the guy. And the folks who believed he's football Jesus, my goodness gracious, were they spreading the good word of Arch Manning? And the people like me who said, I have questions about the guy, nobody talked us off of that position. I'm open to be talked off positions that I hold. That wasn't one that happened. Penn State, Drew Aller. Drew Aller is one of the guys that's being labeled a proven commodity at the quarterback position. I would also like to point out that if you go back last year to the 3 losses sustained by Penn State, Oregon in the regular season, Oregon in the Big Ten, and then in the playoffs. If you go look at those 3 games, they were, without doubt or question, 3 games where Drew Aller did not look good. He just didn't look good. So, questions about Drew Aller. Yes, good regular season quarterback. Ain't no doubt about it. Statistically speaking, one of the best. Do you trust Drew Aller in a big-time playoff spot? Do you trust them if the Big Ten ends 4 teams deep to go win the 1 or 2 big games on the schedule that will determine whether or not they are in a Big Ten championship game? If they get there, do you trust them to go play in a Big Ten championship game and win it? If they get there and win it, do you trust them to go play in a playoff game under actual big pressure, not taking on the group of 5 representation, and win that game? I can't say yes. Questions about the quarterback. Ohio State. Ryan Day said about 3 days ago that the QB1 competition is going to, and I'll quote him directly, come down to the wire, end quote. Now, Julian Sayin is going to be the starting quarterback for the Buckeyes of Ohio State. That's not a question mark to me. However, the question mark is, and I say this with some level of exaggeration to make my point, who the hell is Julian Sayin? Now we know who Julian Sayin is. That's a guy that Nick Saban recruited to come to Alabama. Nick Saban, with the exception of some of you would argue I would not, Jalen Milroe, Nick Saban didn't really miss on quarterbacks at Alabama when he was there. If he was good enough to play at the University of Alabama under Nick Saban, as far as I'm concerned, he's good enough to likely play anywhere that doesn't have a Lenoris Sellers at the helm already. That being said, he hasn't played yet. Not extended time. We don't know what this cat's going to be. Questions about them. The Clemson Tigers. Most people believe that Cade Klubnik is going to be a Heisman finisher this year. Most people believe that Cade Klubnik is going to be a top 1, 2, or 3 draft pick in next year's National Football League draft. There is a very, very good chance that Cade Klubnik could be competing with Spencer Rattler for the QB1 spot of the New Orleans Saints next year. That's very much a possibility. However, as Jacob has pointed out here in the chat just mere moments ago, there's a lot of people that still have questions about Cade Klubnik. Is he going to be able to handle the pressure of playing in the biggest game? I would like to say that ACC title game against SMU last year, where Cade Klubnik did indeed handle the pressure, because keep it a buck, if Clemson doesn't win that game, they were far from guaranteed from getting a playoff spot. And he handled the pressure there. But can he do it again? Georgia, Gunnar Stockton, questions. Notre Dame, J.J. Carr, questions. Oregon, Dante Moore, a guy I think might be a Heisman contender, but also a guy who doesn't have a lot of XP in that role. Questions. Alabama just named Ty Simpson their Week 1 QB yesterday. Quick, tell me anything about Ty Simpson aside from his name. And in 7 minutes, I'll ask you again, what's his name? And most of you will have forgotten. Questions. LSU, Garrett Nussmeier, probably the least questioned of the group that we have mentioned so far. But not to say there are zero questions. Miami, I'll tell you what, the more I look at it, the more Carson Beck might be the most proven quarterback inside the top 10 at the University of Miami. But Arizona State, Sam Leavitt, questions. Who's Illinois' quarterback? Any of you know? No. Questions. There's like 3 proven commodities, and 2 of them I still have questions about inside the top 14. The point here is a good chunk of who's going to be around in this top 25 at the end of the year is going to be determined by who's right and who's wrong about their QB1s. All right, when we come back, I'm going to get you South Carolina fans and you Clemson fans, you're going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya together about something that is happening on both of your football fields this year. I'm going to bring some unity and peace across the land. Next on the Rob Brown Show with the Fan Upstate.
Looks like Robert Downey Jr. when you did that. I was waiting for something to blow up.
I can go get my glasses. Oh, I got the blue ones in the building. I can go get them. I had to retire the glasses because I came to the realization that without them, looking at the computer screen gives me a headache because I'm 100. I got to go get more contacts so I can go back to work. BRB, guys. country continue to find new ways to raise revenue for themselves. The NCAA has, over time, started to change rules to allow for different revenue generation opportunities. One of the changes that has been made over the years, I shouldn't even say over the years, very recently. One of the changes that has been made very recently is that athletic departments are now allowed to add sponsor logos on their football fields. Now, in years gone by, it's been allowed on basketball courts. Some have embraced it, some have not. Television networks have begun, in some cases, to put green-screened, superimposed advertisements down on playing surfaces when available. Yesterday, it was made official and announced that the University of South Carolina has become the most recent school that will add logos onto their field. They have engaged in a partnership with Blanchard Cat, all caps. It is a heavy machinery sales and rental company. Their logo will now be featured on the home field starting with this football season. The company, Blanchard Cat and Blanchard Cat Rentals, is headquartered in West Columbia and run by President and CEO Boyd Blanchard, as well as Executive President Rosier Blanchard, both of whom are graduates of South Carolina. South Carolina's massive Block C logo will still sit at midfield, and SEC logos will remain at the 25-yard line in opposite corners. And beginning with the Gamecocks home opener against SC State on September 6th, 2 Blanchard logos will appear on the turf on the 25-yard line opposite the conference marks. That, okay, got it. Understandable. The unfortunate part about this is in order to make way for those logos, the University of South Carolina is apparently, at least for now, though this could very well change, those logos will replace the state flag emblems that were most recently on the field at the 25-yard lines. Now, South Carolina did make it clear that those flag logos could possibly return. They could possibly return elsewhere on the football field. If the partnership runs up with Cat Blanchard and is not renewed, they may take their place back on the 25s. But this is one of those spots where college football is inevitably going to be corporatized, and there's not much you can do about it. Because by allowing football over the years to become a bottom dollar organization, a bottom dollar entity, a world was created where nothing matters more than money. And that now includes every aspect of running your athletic department. Nothing matters more than money. Can you put more money on the table in NIL revenue to ensure that you have an opportunity to bring in an excellent recruiting class? Can you put more money into guaranteed money for head coaches so that if and when it is time to replace one, you have got a sludge fund available to dip into to get the best coach that you can get, while also paying off a guy that you fired, which is becoming more and more frequent and regular. This is just the way to do that. It's just the way to get more money. And as I have told you for a number of years now, at some point, the fans would start to feel that. And I am not talking about the boosters who are getting hit up for more and more and more and more and more money with great regularity. I know that because I am on the mailing list for my former university, the University of West Florida. Go Argos. And I have noticed over the past year, 2 year and a half, a dramatic uptick in the number of places and the number of ways that my university has reached out to me asking for more money. As if I have any. But they've asked. And every now and then I'm like, all right, yeah, here's $25, here's $100, whatever I got. If I got a little extra, I'll throw some down. My university won me a national championship a few years ago. I'd like to see them back in the hunt. And they're a tiny little baby university down in Pensacola, Florida. So, shout out to the Argos. If I got $20 to throw in the pot, I'll throw it in the pot. I ain't a big money booster. I hope one day I can scratch them a check for $1 million and get them to name the damn football stadium after me. But until we get to that point, here's my $20, right? The reality is, no matter what size schools you are, and I do not care if you are the little bitty baby University of West Florida down in Pensacola, Florida. I do not care if you are the South Carolina Gamecocks. I do not care if you are the Clemson Tigers. We have, as the Phantom of the Opera once famously sang, past the point of no return, the final curtain. It is inevitable. This is why when I have banged the drum years ago and said, hey, fans, you better start to speak out now about the corporatization of college football because there is a tipping point that you can't return from. Ladies and gentlemen, we're past it. It's like way in the rearview mirror at this point. Be glad that the most egregious place that these schools have elected, and while Clemson has not yet announced that they will place a logo on the field, I'm going to call the shot they're going to. Inevitably. They're going to. Because if they don't, that means that the Gamecocks are monetizing something of great value, especially if you are a team that is in national championship contention. Because while Cat Blanchard and Cat Blanchard Rentals may not necessarily be a national company, watch what happens when Dr. Pepper sees how much advertising they are getting out of that. Every time Lenoris Sellers squirts out of the backfield, off guard, there he goes, crosses the 40, the 30, the 25, over the Cat Blanchard Rentals logo, into the end zone, touchdown, Gamecocks. Dr. Pepper's going to go, they just got their name said on TV. As a Heisman Trophy potential winner ran in a tutty, their logo was the brightest and most vivid thing on the football field. Clemson is starting the year in the AP poll at number 4. Every game that they play starting in week 1 with LSU. Every game they play is going to see the 25-yard line on both sides of the field broadcasted in vivid Technicolor. 4K, 1080p, highest of high resolutions. And you get your logo put on national television. Now, for a smaller school like UWF, they're probably going to end up, getting $10,000 from some restaurant in UWF that just wants to put their logo in front of a bunch of sports fans who come out to watch the Argos play against Delta State, and then put it in their brain that when you're on the way home from the game tonight, don't forget, stop at Bobby's Chicken Shack, proud sponsor of the University of West Florida Argonauts. But if you're a top 10 team.
Is that an actual place?
No.
Okay.
Be dope if it was, though. I would 1,000% edit a place called Bobby's Chicken Shack. If it was Clemson taking on LSU, week 1, 7:30, biggest game of the nightcap in week 1. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say LSU versus Clemson, because it is the night game, may have the biggest audience on college football weekend. It's either going to be obviously Ohio State, Texas, or it's going to be LSU, Clemson. And I'd be willing to bet that because it's on at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6:30 Central, 5:30 Mountain, 4:30 Pacific, I am going to wager now that Clemson LSU will likely do a higher ratings number than Ohio State and Texas does. Not that it's a better matchup between two better teams, just it's in the right time slot. And so if I'm Clemson and I know that my football field is going to be the number one most seen football field in America, and OBT ups in week 1, when everybody's hungry for a little college football, why would I not allow Coca-Cola to give me $2 million to slap their logo on the field? Hell, even if I do it game by game, right? Because maybe Coke doesn't want to give you $2 million when ECU comes to town and you're on, the CW in front of 250,000 people. But you know who might be? Maybe a local car dealership, maybe a local restaurant, maybe a local paper company. I don't know, like a local company would want to be. And maybe I'm not going to get 2.5 milli because I know that Coke's going to have their logo in front of 7.18 whatever million people against LSU. But Bobby's Chicken Shack, which is now available for franchise in Clemson, South Carolina, they might be willing to put their name up there. Maybe Bojangles looks and they go, yeah, we're not national, so there's no reason for us to pay $10 million to be on in front of the LSU and Clemson fans, but we are very regional across the East Coast, and this gets us on TV in front of all of the Carolinas with ECU coming down to play. Why not throw them $250,000 for that game? South Carolina's looking at this, and while they did not announce what the financial compensation is from Blanchard Cat and Blanchard Cat Rentals to have their logo splayed on the 25, I guarantee you it wasn't nothing. It was probably a big old paycheck. This is why, and I know many of you, because almost inevitably, whenever I talk about the business of sports, which to me is wildly and very interesting, because the business of sport is, at the end of the day, what shapes what you and I and everybody else sees on television. This is why I talk about it. This is why a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, when the NCAA announced, yep, y'all can put logos on the field now, I said, go ahead and prepare yourselves, literally everyone, because your sanctuary of college football, the field at the Big House, the field at the Horseshoe, the field between the hedges, the field at the Swamp, the field in Death Valley or the other Death Valley, it's going to get a logo on it. And I'm going to keep it a buck. At some point down the line, it is very possible that the SEC sells a conference-wide sponsorship and they pick up the SEC logo and they put down an SEC sponsor logo. And now we got logos in all 4 quarters of the field. And then maybe down the line, we look like the bowl games where there's a midfield logo. All of a sudden, the big block C and Sir Big Spur, that's not there anymore. Now it's a big old logo for Hardee's or whatever. At the end of the day, we have allowed college football to morph into this thing where the bottom dollar matters more than anything else. So everything is for sale. Texter says, Gamecock Twitter was exploding yesterday over Cat being on the field. I don't understand why people get angry about some of the things that they do. I get it, because a lot of people have always had this belief, Texter, that college football was sacred, that college football was church. It's religion, and you don't mess with the religion. It'd be like walking into a church and seeing that the priest sold sponsorship rights to the tabernacle. You'd go, whoa, wait a minute, not appropriate. A lot of people have an almost similar level of reverence for their football field. You can slap logos on the signs, on the billboards, up on the Jumbotron. You can play their commercials during the breaks, whatever you want to do. Keep it the hell off my football field. And now, what they thought was their sanctuary, it's just sold like everything else, my man. Texture said, I have zero issue with it as long as the field doesn't start to look like Ricky Bobby's windshield from Talladega Nights. Oh, it's coming. Every square blade of grass is for sale for the right price. Watch it happen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, talent that can't be bought or sponsored or paid for. Lonzo Sports Flash.
Well, I do get paid.
It can be paid for.
Okay, yeah, so there are several different Bobby's Chicken Shacks, by the way.
Franchise is available.
The Associated Press preseason top 25 dropped yesterday with the Texas Longhorns holding the top spot for the first time in school history. Texas checked in 5 points ahead of Penn State, the closest margin from first to second since 1998. Ohio State holds the third spot ahead of number 4 Clemson, number 5 Georgia. Notre Dame is 6, and Oregon is number 7. Alabama, LSU, and Miami round out the top 10. South Carolina checked in at 13. 2 more Team USA Ryder Cup slots have been claimed. U.S. Open winner J.J. Spaun, who checked in second to Justin Rose in the FedEx St. Jude Championship, and 2-time major winners Andrew Schauffele will both join Scotty Scheffler when Team USA faces off with Team Europe next month. The Milwaukee Brewers won a 10th consecutive game for the second time this season, making them the first MLB team since 2019 with multiple winning streaks.
Brown, the Great Malonzo, and you be a part of the show. 844-326-3663. That is the phone number. That is the Hub City Spartanburger text line, 844-326-3663. The AP Top 25 College Football Poll is out. Coming up here in just a few minutes from right now, we are going to look at the top 25. We are going to make our preseason prognostications. Who's too high, who's too low, who's going to finish higher than they start, lower than they start, around where they start, etc., 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 and have a little fun with that discussion. I had a thought that I wanted to get to as well about the Clemson LSU game that I think Clemson fans may be interested in because it does involve you directly and specifically. We're going to get to that coming up later on in this hour. Plus, I want to talk a little National Football League because yesterday I heard a take that I wanted to get to. And we will get to that take coming up a little bit later on in the show. It is about the rookie quarterbacks across the league.
Thank you. I was going to say, that's not a very good tease. You're just, we're going to get to a thing. What is the thing?
A take, man. A take.
Okay.
Gotta have a take.
All
have
right.
a take, don't suck. All right. But it is 8 o'clock. That means it is time for the Audio Blitz. I almost called it the wrong thing there. The Audio Blitz. Probably forget the names of important things, people, and places in my life, if I had to guess. That's why I ended up with Bobby's Chicken Shack a minute ago, because I could not think of the name of another restaurant in the heat of the moment. So it was easier for me to make one up.
Well, it's better. That way you don't give free publicity to, restaurants without them paying for a sponsorship.
By the way, same guy that owns Bob's Used Cars. He went with the more colloquial Bobby, because it gives you that friendly vibe.
He's also,
Bob, very professional.
Yeah.
Bobby, much more down-to-earth, home cooking kind of guy.
All the NIL deals he's given out is starting to pay off, so he's able to, expand his empire.
Ain't no doubt. All right, let's get to the Audio Blitz, some of the best audio that we have picked up over the past 24 hours. I'm going to start with this one. College football, we mentioned on the way out there, kind of a religion across the South to some degree. And the further you get into the Deep South, the more ingrained that belief becomes. And then there's this very special place. That special place is called Alabama. Now, I don't know how many of you have been to Alabama. There are some places in Alabama that are absolutely beautiful with a capital B-E-A, beautiful. Ain't no doubt. And then there are places in Alabama that don't go there for a variety of reasons. How dedicated are they to their college football? Keeping in mind, Alabama, no professional sports in Alabama. In fact, pretty far away is most of the state from professional sports. There's a good Braves following there. You'll find the occasional Atlanta Falcons fan. But by and large, Alabama is not a place with much in the way to connections of professional sports. You'll find some Saints fans scattered around, but it's Alabama. And it's Auburn most of the time, which is why I found this story of a young lady as told by AL.com. I found it feelings-inducing, though which feelings I haven't quite landed on yet.
I did go to the University of Alabama, but I was sitting in one of my speech therapy classes, and it was probably a class of 60 people. And the professor, I'm pretty sure she's still there, she calls roll in a class of 60 people, which is a pretty good amount. And then that professor stops, and she looks up from the roll and pulls her glasses down and was like, no way, no way. So everybody else in the classroom's like, what's going on? And she was like, I thought this whole time you were an urban legend. Are you seriously sitting here and breathing in my classroom? And I could have just melted. Like, I could have just crawled into a cave. And she, of course, calls my name, and I was like, here, and everybody, whips their head around. My name is Crimson Ann Revis. Before I got married, my name was much more fun. My name was Crimson Ann White, just like the colors. So I grew up in Homewood, Alabama. I grew up going to the Alabama games. When I was younger, I really didn't have an idea of what my name was, but there was always some type of buzz around it when I would go somewhere new and be like, hey, my name's Crimson, there's always a, hold on, what was it?
The young lady's name is Crimson Ann White.
Oh, okay, so it's Ann, not Ann.
Right.
I was worried that, maybe her middle name was Ann.
Crimson with a K, Ann, A-N-N-E, White. You may very well know that when the Alabama Crimson Tide describe themselves to people, they refer to themselves as the Crimson and White. Her parents straight up called her Crimson Ann White. That was her actual legal name. I even had my moment of Lonzoism where I went, there's no way, that's not real. That can't be real. No parent, no matter how dedicated you are to the University of Alabama or any other university of blank, you're not naming your kid Crimson Ann White.
By the way,
then I went and looked it up. Turns out, nope, she is documented well throughout her lifetime. Her name before she got married was Crimson Ann White.
I don't doubt names. I never doubt. When someone tells me it's like, yeah, parents do stuff like that. It's just there. I used to know a guy who worked there. He's no longer with us. His first name was Clemson. So, I mean, it does happen for sure.
Crimson Ann White, to some degree, I can understand. Maybe not the first name Crimson with a K on the front of it. Naming a kid Clemson, like that's his name, that's his legal
that was
on
his
his driver's
name.
license first name.
That was his name, yes.
I got nothing.
He didn't go by that name. And I just happened to see full names because of my job. And there it was.
There are times that I remind myself, you know what, I love college football.
By the way, he was a Clemson fan too, so that worked out. Because if he wasn't, that would have been a problem probably.
There are times that I remember, I think to myself, I love college football. But then I hear stories like that, and I'm like, I don't think I love college football, guys. I think I just like college football. I think I have like a platonic relationship with college football. I don't think I have that like passionate, deep, lusty love with college football like someone who would name their kid Crimson Ann White. That is a level of dedication. The best part about that story, and the story was too long. Unfortunately, I couldn't clip the whole thing because we'd have been here for like 6 minutes listening to it. But she went on to say that when she graduated high school, the particular major that she wanted to pursue was in a subject that the University of Auburn University, excuse me, let me get that one wrong, that Auburn University is nationally known, recognized, and renowned for. And so when she came out of high school, Crimson Ann White, who was not yet married and was still going legally by the name Crimson Ann White, applied to go to Auburn. She was going to go be a War Eagle Tiger. I'm going to guess that would have ruined Thanksgiving. Had she come home and said, Mom, Dad, War Eagle, and they would have said Crimson Ann White, get the hell out.
That's, daughters tend to be rebellious. So that would have been funny if she did that.
That's fantastic. Hey, we talked about Jimmy Buffett earlier in the show. Hey, this is completely unsports related, and I don't care. We talked about Jimmy Buffett actually yesterday on the show.
I think that was yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday on the show. Time's a flat circle, everything's a blur. We talked about Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy Buffett has a song I actually accidentally, because I forgot that I did not go to break on the stream, sang a song yesterday called Boat Drinks by Jimmy Buffett. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. The subject matter is, guy sitting.
He's not ashamed of his voice. He doesn't care that he sang it on the stream.
No, not really.
He just wants you to go back and look at the stream and watch him sing.
No, not really. Don't give away the secrets, man. It's called engagement farming. All right?
Is that like aura farming? Or is it?
No, engagement farming is something that we track and get paid for. So it's much more important.
All right. And now for a word from our sponsor.
Jimmy Buffett sang a song called Boat Drinks. The song is written and sung from the perspective of a guy trapped in a cold weather environment and how much he wants to go back to somewhere that it's warm and drink some boat drinks. Well, Mac McAnally, very famous singer-songwriter who spent years and years and years writing with, touring with, performing with Jimmy Buffett, told the story about that song.
He's got a song called Boat Drinks, and it's about not wanting to be in cold weather, and he never wanted to be in cold weather. But he was in Boston. One of the Bruins had a sports bar, and he was sitting in the sports bar, and it was freezing, and it was snowing. An ad came on about cheap flights to the Caribbean. And he just like, I'm going. So just like that song says, that's what was happening. He decided he was going. Back then, you could just go to the airport and get a ticket to somewhere. So he said, I'm going to the airport. He went out to get a cab. There was a cab line right outside the bar, but the front cab, the driver wasn't in it. The door was standing open. Jimmy stole the cab. He got in the cab. He drove it to Boston Airport, got out of it, left it running with the keys in it, just like he found it, went in and bought a ticket to Saint somewhere. I don't know which island he went to, but he bought himself a ticket with zero consequences. He didn't get busted for anything. Nobody knew it was him that did it. He just stole a cab and left it at the airport and bought a plane and went to the islands and got to write a song about it that people sing, all the time and don't know exactly the origins of. But
Jimmy Buffett is outlaw country, but he replaced whiskey with rum. He replaced the desert with an island. He replaced the saddle with a hammock. And there is a reason to this very day that Rob Brown will tell you that my favorite singer-songwriter of all time is Jimmy Buffett. Because when I retire, fingers crossed, there is nothing I want to do more than own a house somewhere in the Caribbean that nobody knows where it is, and I got a hammock, and I got a cooler that is the size of a guest house full of rum, and I got my wife, a dog, the beach, and a TV, and not a damn thing else.
All right, I am curious. Was he Jimmy Buffett when he did it? I mean, was he was he famous? Did he already have hit songs, or was this just some aspiring artist who actually had the pocket money to go, I'm going to go to the Caribbean?
Well, first off, obviously, plane tickets used to be a hell of a lot cheaper. But here's the take I have in response to that. That story's cool as hell, whether he was famous or not, right?
No, it's an awesome story, but I just believe his fame may have stopped him from getting arrested.
Guy straight up steal. And I'm going to, for the record, because I love it, I'm going to work under the assumption that every word that Mac McAnally just told about Jimmy Buffett is 1,000% true. In my head, that story is gospel truth in the book of Buffett, and I subscribe to it.
What was the name of that song again?
Boat Drinks. Visitors scored on the home rink, or everything seems to be wrong.
Listen, I'm not going to apologize for not knowing a lot of Jimmy Buffett songs. I do know Wasted Away, but here's the thing. All the stuff he sings about is stuff I've never done or never will do. So it doesn't appeal to me.
Stuff I grew up with and around. That's why it does
let's hope you
to me.
didn't grow up drinking boat drinks. But
this morning, I shot 6 holes in my freezer. I think I've got cabin fever.
Okay, you're singing the song.
Yeah,
okay.
Correct. Love some Buffett. Love that story. Love that from Mac McAnally. Good take. Appreciate it. Love to hear it. Hey, we have finally got our first response from Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette got tossed from preseason game number 1 against the Cleveland Browns because he got into fisticuffs with the defensive back for the Cleveland Browns. They both hit the showers, kids. And we talked about it quite a bit yesterday. Really disappointing because this is the offseason that I very much need Xavier Legette to prove that he's the dude. Why? Because I want him around forever. He's my favorite NFL player, and I got to keep it a buck. I thought about this a lot yesterday after I heard this clip. Xavier Legette legitimately might already be one of my favorite 4 NFL players of all time. Like, realistically. Like, might be one of my favorite 4 NFL players of all time. Not just because of what he's done or not done on the football field, but just as a dude. But in that moment, kind of a weak spot for a dude. I need you to prove you deserve to be on the field. I need you to prove you're number 2. What I don't need you to do is get out there, allow a DB to insult Dollar Bill and start throwing hands. Well, it came out after the game and before practice yesterday that XL spent a little time this offseason getting his cardio up. Spent a little time getting the old strength and stamina up. And how did he do it? Professional boxing lessons. He was taking boxing over the summer to get the cardio up. Now, somebody who, back when I was a younger and more formidable man, did that for a couple of summers. I took boxing lessons. I took boxing from Roy Jones Jr., greatest pound-for-pounder of all time. I didn't do it because I ever thought I was going to use it in an actual fight. Thought, man, it'd be nice to have it in the back pocket if I do. But I did it because I wanted to get in shape. I wanted to build some confidence. I wanted to get the cardio up. I wanted to get my fat behind back into shape. But I will tell you that after I was done with those lessons, yeah, I felt a lot better about myself. Felt a lot more confidence. I didn't go in and go, well, if there's a fight, I got to talk out of it. I went in going, there's not going to be a fight. And if there is, I'll end it. Because I felt real good about myself. So Xavier Legette at practice yesterday got asked, hey, man, did those boxing lessons, is that maybe what triggered you to throw some haymakers at a dude wearing a helmet?
Not to say that came into play on the field, but can you talk about why you train with the boxing? And
that's just for cardio. Yeah, that's just for the cardio. That's all that's for.
Just cardio.
Yeah.
So, did those natural instincts come out though on the field?
I guess you can say that.
Probably shouldn't be laughing about it. He probably shouldn't be. I'm just saying that's. I mean, laugh on the inside.
So, I'm a human being. I think most of us are.
I don't know.
Lonzo doubts that sometimes.
I still suspect. Yeah.
I'm a human being, and I'm going to tell you. And I think most of you that are in similar spots will understand what I'm saying here. There are things that, for instance, my wife can do or say to me. There are things that, say, for instance, my little nephew can say or do to me that I go, God, you're so cute. That if any of you did it to me, I'd punch you in the face. You understand? There are things that my little nephew and my wife can say to me or do to me that if you did it, I would fight you. If my wife walks over when I'm halfway through a nap and tickles the bottom of my feet because she knows it's going to jolt me awake like I just did a Scarface amount of cocaine in the AM, I'm going to wake up and go, oh, it's a good thing I think you're pretty. But if you did it to me, I'm going to wake up and go, I hope you're ready to meet your maker because you're about to.
And why are you in Rob's house and he's asleep? I don't know.
That's also a fair point. Point is, when they do it, I go, I forgive you because I love you and you're adorable. I don't want to be that guy with XL, but I can't help it, man. I heard that and I'm like, all right, I kind of get it. And like maybe it's a little personal to me because, again, took boxing lessons, sparred a little bit. Like not anything that I would say I am capable of defending myself in a fight. I don't know if I am. I still try to talk myself out of it.
The follow-up question should have been, were you winded? Because he took it for cardio. He threw some punches out there. He got it. Was he winded afterwards?
Good follow-up question.
I would want to know, did the cardio work?
I took enough boxing lessons that I'm comfortable and confident saying that if we did a charity radio station boxing event, I'm relatively confident of everyone in this building, I win. Not because I'm like bigger, stronger, faster than everybody in the building, but just I've got the background that I assume very few people else in the building have. I get it from XL. If that was a bleed over, I get it. He laughed. He said, no, that's not it. But they said, did that kind of kick in? And he's like, maybe. I mean, you could say that. I guess it did a little bit. And then he laughed at it. And I got to tell you, I really want to be mad at the guy, but I'm having a hard time doing it. I'm kind of in a wife tickling my feet spot. I'm like, God dang it, it's a good thing I think you're adorable. Because I think XL's adorable.
Yeah, it's still preseason. If it's regular season, it might be different.
That's also fair. If that's week 1 and they're down 7, I'm probably in a very different spot. All right, let's take a break. When we come back here in just a moment from right now, let's talk a little more college football. LSU Clemson's very interesting to me, not just because of the game itself, but because I think there is a very good chance that one of those two fan bases is going to be in absolute meltdown mode by 2 Sundays from now. Let's talk about the impact of that game on you, the fans, when we come back on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, we got a long break here. Y'all stay right there. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Please don't go anywhere. And while you have a couple of minutes, do us a favor. Share us around on your social media. Tell your friends about us. You got anybody you think would like the show? Invite them to be a part of the show. We'd love to have them. Tell them how smart, funny, amazing, and handsome we are so that they come and they stay. Be back. The Rob Brown Show, back on your radio. It is the Fan Up State. Rob, Lonzo, and you. Clemson and South Carolina are both inside of the top 13 in the AP top 25 poll, but it is the Tigers of Clemson that have the more consequential week one opener. That's not entirely true, actually. I think South Carolina's is probably more consequential as a loss for the Clemson Tigers or LSU Tigers. A loss for those teams in no way, shape, or form eliminates from the playoffs, either as conference champions or as an at-large team. It does make it a little bit more difficult to get there, but it absolutely is a possibility that they could. It will make it more difficult, but as has been mentioned a few times on the show, as one of those that I understand why so many of you want the preseason poll done away with. I'm not even saying you're wrong or that I disagree with you. I don't. I'm saying that they're not going to get rid of it because it makes some televised games sexier. And when you get a top six matchup right out the gate like Clemson and LSU, that's a very sexy matchup. The other thing that it does is for schools that catch a higher ranking like Clemson and LSU, it takes a game like this. And I'm not saying it makes it non-consequential. I'm saying it makes it less consequential because while you will drop, we talked about this one earlier in the show as well, realistically speaking. When it's all said and done, the loser of that game between number 4 Clemson and number 9 LSU. If Clemson drops that game, I suspect they'll drop down to be like number 8, 9, 10. I would suspect that they will drop to be just based on the point totals accumulated. Clemson with 1,398 points and 4 first-place votes would likely, I would assume, slide down to around number 9, right ahead of Miami, who has 889 points. I would guess there's about a 500-point penalty for which one of these teams loses. If LSU at number 9 with 1,100 points was to lose, I'm going to guess they would slide somewhere around 15, 16, where we find Florida and SMU. I could make an argument that LSU might stay at like 12, 13 in the mix with South Carolina and Michigan, but no need to dwell on the hypothetical. Here's what I am very interested in. Whichever team loses that game on the opening Saturday of college football, a game that kicks off at 7:30 and therefore will end somewhere between 11:30 p.m. and midnight, I'm going to tell you exactly what Rob Brown's going to do that night. What Rob Brown's going to do is he's going to go find whatever game is the latest late night start that day. Colorado State at Washington at 11 o'clock. Utah, UCLA, 11 o'clock. Hawaii at Arizona, 10:30. Cal at Oregon State, 10:30. Idaho, Washington State at 10 o'clock. Or maybe the mighty whatever they are of Northern Arizona taking on number 11 Arizona State. By the way, because I went and looked as I was saying that, the Northern Arizona University Lumberjacks.
Yes.
You had better bet your Rudy Patootie. Your boy's headed right now to the Northern Arizona University merch shop because I want nothing more than to find out, do they have any team-branded flannel? Because if I can get a flannel shirt with Lumberjacks across the back, your boy's all in. Also, I want to see what their Lumberjack mascot looks like. Put all that to bed. We'll come back to the Lumberjacks later on in the show. The point here is, that night, I'm going to go find whichever one of those late night games is the most intriguing to me. I'm going to put it on the big screen. I'm going to take the other 5 of them. I'm going to put them on the other assorted televisions and computers and tablets around the Bro Cave. I'm going to pour myself a nice bottle, a solid-sized glass of Angel's Envy or Four Roses, whichever I decide on as my bourbon o' choice for a late-night schadenfreude. And I am going immediately to every message board of the team, of the school that loses that game, Clemson or LSU. Because assuming that one of those two teams in week 1, which is very likely. I would feel different about what I'm about to say if this was a week 7 game. But it is very possible that with these two offenses both being heavily predicated on their quarterback and on the passing game, if one of these two teams loses the game because they, A, shoot themselves in the foot, or B, more likely for LSU than Clemson, but coaches themselves out of a win, the meltdown is going to be absolutely iconic.
You're going to want some lumberjack merch. Trust me.
Is it good?
Oh, they even have pillows.
Hell yeah. I mean, all about
he is a manly lumberjack.
Hell yeah.
And he looks like an axe murderer.
Hell yeah. I'm all in on a great mascot. I'm going to go check out the NAU merch store here in a minute. The meltdown between the fans of the losing team is going to be absolutely iconic because this is not a normal year for either one of these teams. We've talked about this at length. I'm not going to spend all the time in the world on the details here, but if you look at the Louisiana State University Fighting Tigers, you were looking at a head coach that I believe, although in some sound I may get to a little bit later on in the show, Peter Burns, friend of the show, buddy of the show, who joined us at SEC Media Days, Peter Burns said on the SEC Network, he does not for a second believe, regardless of the outcome of this season, that Brian Kelly's on the hot seat. I respectfully, because I love Peter Burns, I respectfully disagree with him entirely. I think Brian Kelly is on the hot seat for the hot seat right now. He's like the hot seat that is the hot seat for the hot seat. He's on the hot seat now to be on the hot seat next year. What happens this season is absolutely going to either push Brian Kelly onto or pull Brian Kelly off of the hot seat. And LSU is a team that has struggled mightily in week 1 games, dating back to when they lost to Florida State in New Orleans on that blocked extra point that Florida State walked them off on. Y'all, the Bayou Bengal fan base about imploded that night. That was a few years ago. I remember it vividly. I got a bunch of LSU family. They were texting me in the middle of the night like, yo, WTF was that? What are we doing? The meltdown for LSU fans would be, I think, hilarious. And, of course, being LSU fans, absolutely bourbon-filled into the evening, so, subscribe. But I would also make the argument, while I do not think the meltdown would be quite as dramatic amongst Clemson fans, I've got to assume, with the attitude that y'all have right now, and rightfully so, it's a very good team on paper, as we had Cruz pointed out earlier in the stream. Statistically speaking, on paper, one of the better Clemson classes since the last Natty. If you drop game 1, especially if the offense looks wonky, maybe Garrett Riley misses some play calls, maybe they're just not the team you wanted them to be, whatever the case might be. If it looks a little wonky and you don't get it done, I got to imagine there's at least a little bit of a meltdown there as well. This game is not just impactful from the standpoint of two teams trying to open up the season with a dub, with a top 10 dub to solidify the resume should they fall into the spot of an at-large bid seeker. It is also two teams with narratives about them in week 1. Narratives about them for the 2025 season that could be program impacting for years. If Dabo doesn't meet the referendum, awkward conversation time. If Brian Kelly doesn't get it done, awkward conversation and a huge payout to move on time. This game is not just consequential from the standpoint of two teams fighting for a spot in the college football playoff and a national championship. It is consequential in terms of what happens with head coaches moving into 2026. Give me your thoughts on that. We'll talk more about the AP Poll Top 25 and more when we come back on The Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Bring back Les Miles, hat.
I've never seen a school that has pillows for sale. It was on their Fanatics page, I think.
I looked it up. I'm not going to lie. That Fear the Lumberjack shirt is pretty solid.
I mean, that dude's
it's got fear written in the serial killer logo with the lumberjack and the axe murderer lumberjack. That's a dope shirt. I might pick that one up. The only issue I have, and this is I know this is just a case of everything's getting more expensive. That is a $30 T-shirt before shipping and taxes. You are looking at going in the hole for $50 for a T-shirt to that school. Those are the types of spots.
T-shirt, though.
It's a great T-shirt.
How much do you normally pay for your T-shirt?
Not $50.
Okay.
Honestly, like
I will pay that much at DXL. And the reason why, that Superman shirt that I wear is like 15, 20 years old. Anything I buy from there, it lasts forever. Like this shirt I got from there, it probably will last longer than me. So,
I mean, I get it quantity-wise, but I would also say, and this is on me, like I haven't owned a gazillion T-shirts. It's going to go into the rotation, and it's going to get worn, but like I'm not wearing it 3 times a month. I'm wearing it once, maybe twice a month. Left my drink. Just $50 with shipping and taxes.
how much did you spend on glasses? On those sunglasses that you...
The Iron Man glasses? $7 a pair.
Okay.
On Amazon.
All right.
Like the most expensive glasses I have a pair of.
How about those primes? How much were those primes?
$27.
Okay, but still.
Like $27. My most expensive glasses are my wraparound Oakleys. They were like $100, but they're prescription. I can wear them to the beach and see, as opposed to having to put contacts in and not go into the water.
I don't know, $50 for a T-shirt if it's a one-shot deal. I don't know if I have a problem with that. Good portion of my T-shirts are like Walmart for like $9. I know they're not going to last very long. They look pretty cool a couple times I wear them, and then that's it. People have Buck Owens trending. Why? Oh, okay. Maybe that's why. All right. That's why it's trending. Okay. This Crystal Palace in Bakersfield, California announces closure. Okay. You'll be disheartened to learn that Buck Owens Crystal Palace is closing its doors.
Oh, that's Buck Owens was before me.
But do you know who Buck Owens is?
Yeah, the old TV show, right? No, that's not Buck Owens.
He was
Buck
on,
Owens is a little.
No, Buck Owens was on Hee Haw.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So it is a TV thing.
Yeah, yeah. I was wondering why he was trending. Like, okay, and why is he showing up on my feed? He's about as country as you get. Get off my feed, Buck Owens.
You're a Yeehaw guy. Apparently.
Now I can't remember Buck's partner. It's Roy Clark.
Ryan
That's it.
Reynolds posted that. Oh, man. Well, I just got to find an excuse to bring that up.
You suck.
You're 47. What are you going to do?
The Rob Brown Show rolls on. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and you.
I meant that one with violence. For taking stuff away from me.
Ryan Reynolds posted a picture of the Avengers A, but with an anarchy symbol A on top of it. And obviously people have gotten into the discussions of What that means is we march ever closer to the debut of Avengers Doomsday summer of next year, I think that movie drops?
No, I believe it's November or December.
Was it this year?
No, of next year.
Oh, of next year. So fall of next year. Man, I don't care if Deadpool's in it for like a minute or a long time. I just need a payoff to the Thor crying scene.
Yeah, he's got to be in it for the Thor
Yeah,
scene for sure.
All right, let's talk AP preseason top 25. The University of Texas, for the first time in school history, will open the season as the AP's preseason numero uno team. They are also the first team in AP poll preseason poll history to be number one and enter week one as an underdog. They are on the road at number 3, Ohio State, ranked just behind their Big Ten rival, the Penn State Nittany Lions. Texas a 2.5-point underdog, but as they are, on the road, that makes sense. You get 2.5 or 3 points by being at the crib, so that is just the home field advantage of the horse chestnuts coming into play. So the SEC holds spots number 1 and number 5. The Big Ten, with Penn State and Ohio State, holds spots number 2 and number 3. The ACC holds spot number 4, 1 inside of the top 5 when you include the top 10. The Southeastern Conference also holds the number 5 position with Georgia, the number 8 position with Alabama, and the number 9 position with LSU. Independent Notre Dame is number 6. The Big Ten has one more team in the mix with number 7, Oregon, and the ACC has one more team with number 10, Miami. It is not till number 11 that you find the first Big 12 team. That is Arizona State. Back to the Big Ten, we go for Illinois at number 12. SEC hanging on to spot number 13 with South Carolina. To the Big Ten for 14 with Michigan. The SEC has 15 with Florida. The ACC has 16 with SMU. So that is how the conferences align in our preseason top 25. Here is the question that I have for you. Who's too high, who's too low? And you can base it on whatever rationale you want to base it on. We had a texter just mere moments ago shoot a very interesting question to the Hub City Spartanburger text line at 844-326-3663. You text your thoughts to that number, 844-326-3663. We will read them on the air. Texter said, just to get ahead of the 10 SEC teams ranked holy cow narrative, last season there were 9 SEC teams ranked in the preseason top 25. Of those 9, how many teams finished in the season ranked higher than in the preseason? Correct answer is 1, Tennessee. I actually went just because I was curious earlier in the day, and I pulled last year's preseason top 25 and last year's end of regular season, not conference championship weekend results, the end of the regular season, just because I was curious. Preseason, Georgia was number 1. They could not finish higher than number 1. They dropped all the way down to number 5. Texas started off number 4. They ended the regular season at number 2, so they moved up. Alabama started at number 5. Alabama finished 11. They dropped down. Ole Miss started 6. Ole Miss finished 15. They dropped down. Preseason, LSU started at number 13. They wrapped up the year, if I recall correctly, unranked. I think they ended up with some votes, but they were unranked. Tennessee started at number 15. Tennessee ended at number 6, so they moved up. Oklahoma started at number 16. Oklahoma ended up unranked. Going down the rest of Texas A&M started at number 20. Texas A&M ended the year as number 26, the first unranked team, but the first team that would have gotten back in, and that was it for the SEC last year. Now, the difference to me, texter, between last year and this year, Rob Brown has been, for the duration of his career, with the exception of this year. And I am asking from you, special treatment because of that. You can stack up the last coming up on 18 years of my career. And in the 18 years that I have been doing this, not only have I not been SEC guy, but quite the opposite. For 18 years, I have been the guy, and I felt like for many of them, though keep in mind only 5 of them, have I been broadcasting here in the beautiful upstate of South Carolina in SEC territory. But when I was broadcasting down in the Florida Panhandle, very much SEC territory. When I was broadcasting in Lower Alabama, very much SEC territory. When I was broadcasting in Louisiana, when I was broadcasting in the butthole of America, Jacksonville, Florida, when I was broadcasting across the deep South, I was squarely in SEC territory. And I was, it felt like, the only guy in the media who did not subscribe to the, well, the SEC is better than everybody else. We just beat each other up week in and week out narrative. Now, not everybody who is an SEC fan talks like that. All right, that's probably rude of me to do.
There's a good portion, though. I mean, there just is because of the region. It's not. It's. I mean, you
Correct.
know, it just is.
Where I was broadcasting, that was a very popular way to talk about the Southeastern Conference. And for years, 13 of them, to be precise and exact, for years, I pushed back against the SEC narrative. Every year at the end of the year, I dove deep into non-conference matchups, not just records in them, but strength of non-conference matchups. Yeah, the SEC was, 17-5 in non-conference games, but hey, of those 17, 14 of them were against teams that haven't been ranked in a decade. Let's look at games against top 25 teams. You went 4-3 or 2-5 or whatever against those. I was the guy who pushed back against that narrative for years. And that includes last year. Because no, even with Jackson Dart, who, by the way, looked like an absolute dude for the New York Giants. I think Jackson Dart might be starting early in this season for the G-Man. He looked sharp in preseason game number 1. But even with Jackson Dart, there was no world that I believed that the Ole Miss Runnin' Rebels were a legitimate top 10 team. I didn't believe it. And I called it out before it started. And then you looked at Ole Miss, and they finished, 9-3 in the regular season. Not a bad year. But they weren't in that mix. And I looked at a team like LSU, and I went, I don't trust, I feel the same way this year. I don't trust Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly is not a dude, historically speaking, who gets the best out of his players at the times when he needs the best out of his players. And part of the reason I'm picking Clemson in week 1. Because Dabo always gets the best out of his guys. He just had a couple of years where the best out of his guys wasn't on par with the best of the best football teams in America. This year it is. This is why Dabo and the Clemson Tigers are a legitimate national championship threat. Because on paper, they are as good as just about anybody else in the country, and you never have to worry if Dabo's going to get the best out of his guys in the biggest moments. I don't feel that way about Brian Kelly. I wasn't in on LSU last year. To be honest with it, I'm not in on LSU this year. I think there's probably 3, maybe 4 losses waiting for the Bayou Bengals down the stretch. But in the 18 years I have been, in my anecdotal experience, one of the very few guys where I was broadcasting. That may or may not be true here in the upstate of South Carolina. But where I was broadcasting, where it was a whole lot of SEC fans and a few scattered Florida State fans, etc., I've been the guy who largely pushed back against the SEC is king and everybody else is fighting for our table scraps narrative. So I am asking for you to consider that fact when I tell you that. It's different this year. It's different this year. This conference this year is not just the deepest conference in college football. This conference this year, I've said it, I'll say it again, and I will stand on it. This conference this year is the deepest conference, I think, in the history of conferences. Now, I've been saying the phrase I've been using, and not just on this show, but I said it last week when I filled in on BetMGM Tonight. I said it last Tuesday when I was guesting on multiple shows across that network. I said it on Saturday on nationally syndicated Infinity Sports Network with the sports machine Sean Levine. I have been on in the last 3 weeks since we returned from SEC and ACC Media Days. The phrase that I have been saying is, I think this is the deepest conference in the history of the Southeastern Conference. I would like to amend that statement. I think this is the deepest conference in the history of conferences in college football. And yes, I will fully acknowledge that there is a chunk of that may be as a knee-jerk overreaction to the propaganda extravaganza that was the SEC Media Days over in Atlanta, Georgia. But here's what I've said. I think Alabama is a very good football team. Will Ty Simpson be the guy? I don't know. And I would like to go on and predicate that this all comes with a caveat, and it is not exclusive to the Southeastern Conference. I think that this is true across the overwhelming majority of college football. I think a lot of it is going to be dictated based on who's right and who's wrong about their quarterback. There are a few schools outside of the SEC and the Big Ten that have proven commodities at quarterback that make them very interesting wild cards. Dante Moore at Oregon. Although he's not outside of the Big Ten, you get it. Avery Johnson at Kansas State. Sean Leavitt at Arizona State. These are guys that are proven commodities, proven performers with winning pedigrees behind them that I think, because of the question marks about quarterback across the contenders, I think we'll have them themselves in the mix. But I think Alabama is national championship caliber. I think Florida with DJ Lagway, who I think will be more Lenora Sellers than anything else, is championship caliber. On the bottom end of that tier, but in it. Georgia is championship caliber. LSU, if Garrett Nussmeier is a Heisman Trophy finalist, championship caliber. Oklahoma, if Brent Venables has indeed, as all the folks out in Boomer Sooner country have said he has, figured it out. Oklahoma's scary. Ole Miss, I don't necessarily think they're championship caliber, but I think they're 9-3. South Carolina with Lenora Sellers, Heisman Trophy candidate, championship caliber. Tennessee Volunteers, got to figure out what the hell they are without Nico Iamaleava, but they're high right now on what they got. Texas A&M, championship caliber. Texas, championship caliber. Bringing up the rear, the Vanderbilt Commodores, who beat Auburn last year, who beat Alabama last year, and won some damn football games in the SEC. The worst team in the SEC grabbed themselves some wins last year. This is the deepest conference in the history of conferences. I have always been pushed back against the SEC rules and you all drools guy. I can't do it this year. I do think the conference this year.
Never heard that before.
I do think the conference this year is what all of the SEC fans have been saying it has been for the last handful of years. We will find out if I am right. We will also find out what's happening across the sports landscape with Lonzo Sports Flash.
Spanning all of the sports landscape. But the only thing anyone cares about, the Associated Press preseason top 25 dropped yesterday with the Texas Longhorns holding the top spot for the first time in school history. Texas checked in 5 points ahead of Penn State, the closest margin from first to second since 1998. Ohio State holds the third spot ahead of number 4 Clemson and number 5 Georgia. Notre Dame is 6, and Oregon is at 7. Alabama, LSU, and Miami round out the top 10. South Carolina checked in at 13. 2 more Team USA Ryder Cup slots have been claimed. U.S. Open winner J.J. Spahn, who checked in second to Justin Rose in the FedEx St. Jude Championship, and 2-time major winner Xander Schauffele will both join Scotty Scheffler when Team USA faces off with Team Europe next month. The Milwaukee Brewers won a 10th consecutive game for the second time this season, making them the first MLB team since 2019 with multiple winning streaks of at least 10 games, and that is really good. That's all I got to say about that. Kevin, if I don't speak up near the end of an hour, it's because I'm trying to get him to stay on the clock, which is, clocks are hard. And sometimes I just don't want to get the mean look that I get, I should be laughing at that.
Certificates to help you move your career forward. From cybersecurity and AI to healthcare and MBA, our programs help you build critical thinking, leadership, and communication skills that set you apart in today's job market. Apply now and save with no application fee through September 3rd. Visit umgc.edu to get started. Certified to operate in Virginia by Shell. Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textingterms.us. Texting allows you for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Stop to opt out.
There's a lot on the line in divorce. This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell, the largest family law firm in the country. When you find yourself facing divorce, you need a partner you can count on.
Connect with a local divorce attorney today. Text OFFICE to 323232. OFFICE to 323232. 55 Beatty Greenville.
Enjoy the sounds of summer from Mellow Mushroom Pizza Bakers. Enjoy the taste of summer too, with amazing hand-tossed pies, cool, crisp salads, and over 100 beers from around the world. Mellow Mushroom, 1 Augusta Street in Greenville's.
So I'm just on an absolute Rivals kick on Xbox right now. And I've kind of started playing as Doctor Strange, who is a tank in the game.
Mm-hmm.
You just run up to the front line, he shoots missiles, and then the rest of his build-out kit is he has the I forget what the name of the spell is, but the whip. That's his melee attack. And then he can fly for short periods of time with his cape, and he can do a portal. And the portal in the game is really cool because it's perfect, right? You can go in and out of it, back and forth, and it'll drop you wherever it is. So what I found out the other day was if I put one end of the portal out of bounds on the map, I can then turn the portal sideways and put it under a character and spin it because it opens up just like in the movies. And I found that, and it's only good for one kill, but like if there's one dude who is just smoking my team, I'll put one portal off the map, I'll put the other one, I will just maneuver under that character and wait till they stay still on top of it, and then open it, and they just bomb off the map somewhere. So I was playing yesterday and I did it, and the voice chat cuts out when the game ends, but the type chat is on the thing. And this guy just types in like all caps, 100 U's long, bleep you, Doctor Strange, LOL. And I thought, I made that guy have a stroke while he was playing this game.
Way to go, you. It sounds like a fun way to get a kill in the game for sure.
The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we roll into the college football season. Your AP preseason top 25 is out. We have talked at length about it so far. The Clemson Tigers enter the season checking in the AP top 25 at number 4 with 4 first place votes, about 50 points behind the Buckeyes of Ohio State, ranked number 3. They are about the same distance between them and Penn State, ranked number 2. Penn State just 5 points shy of the number 1 spot with the University of Texas. We are going to talk a lot more college football, obviously, as we inch ever closer to the kickoff of the 2025 season. I will ask, and I don't necessarily think we need to spend a ton of time on it, primarily because, well, everybody is right now. But just for the sake of the quick and dirty discussion, we buying in on James Franklin? We buying in on James Franklin? Are we in on James Franklin this year? Because, and I've said this a number of times, it feels to me like the conversation around the Penn State Nittany Lions is different this year. It feels to me like in the places I've gone, SEC Media Days, ACC Media Days, and across various podcasts and shows around these great United States of America in the few weeks since then, it feels like a lot of people have changed their tune on Penn State. Now, I think there's a reason for that. It has been a narrative on this show for like weeks now that a lot of the teams, and I would argue this is true for number 1 all the way down to number 19 A&M, maybe number 20, maybe number 21 Ole Miss, Texas Tech, Tennessee, Boise State. I think it might be true of the overwhelming majority of teams who will begin the season inside of the AP Top 25. Quarterback questions. This is potentially the deepest crop of college football quarterbacks that we have seen in a long time. Realistically, Arch Manning at Texas, Drew Aller at Penn State, Julian Sayin at Ohio State, Cade Klubnik at Clemson, Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, J.J. Carr at Notre Dame, Dante Moore at Oregon, Ty Simpson at Alabama, Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, Carson Beck at Miami. These are all dudes, some who have already proven themselves as dudes, some of whom are going to be trying to prove that they are dudes, and that's not even getting into Sam Levitt, Lenoris Sellers, DJ Lagway, Kevin Jennings, Avery Johnson. I mean, the list goes on. The greatest thing that could ever be for college football would be if every one of these quarterbacks lived up to the hype that has been built around them. Avery Johnson has Kansas State Wildcat fans legitimately believing that they are not just a playoff team, that they are a contender in the college football national championship race. I know that because about 2 weeks ago, I was on a podcast based out of the Midwest. Had a couple of fellas that I met a connection at SEC Media Days. They were looking for somebody to come on and do an SEC season preview. I volunteered to do it because I don't ever say no.
Gotta say no sometimes, dude.
I don't like saying
it's okay to say no.
I didn't say no. So I went on and I did about an hour with the fellas just breaking it down. And one of the guys on that pod is a Kansas State guy. And he said, Rob Brown, let me ask you in your esteemed and professional opinion. And that's exactly how he phrased it. I'm definitely not misquoting him at all. He said, what's your take on the Kansas State Wildcats? And I said, man, quarterback's great. But there is a bar for even the best quarterbacks, even a guy like Arch Manning, even a guy like DJ Lagway, even a guy like Lenoris Sellers, even a guy like Cade Klubnik. There is a spot where you can have a great quarterback, but if the rest of your team around the guy is subpar, he's only going to be able to carry you so far. Like, I don't expect that Kansas State is going to have an upset loss anywhere just because their QB1 is a dude, is an absolute dude. Problem is, I don't know who else. Hey, they got a really good running back, but across the offensive line, they're undersized. Across the defensive front seven, they're undersized. Like, maybe you steamroll your schedule, but you feel to me like another in a long list of teams that is going to bring one very special dude to the college football playoffs, and then he's going to meet up with a Big Ten front seven or an SEC front seven. He's going to meet up with defensive linemen who are faster than the linebackers he plays in the regular season. He is going to meet up with linebackers who are faster than the defensive backs that he's seen all season. He's going to meet up with defensive backs that are the fastest human beings he's ever been on a football field with. And it's going to fight. It's going to take you out of the running. It is, and this is the example I used. It is exactly what happened last year to Ashton Jeanty and the Boise State Broncos. All year long, Ashton Jeanty was just remarkably special on the college football field. But that is because in most, not all, but in most weeks, Ashton Jeanty was playing against guys who were pretty good football players. And then Ashton Jeanty and the Boise State Blue Turf Smurfs, they got to the playoffs, and they ran up against a Big Ten defense. What happened? Ashton Jeanty just looked like a guy because all of the sudden, holes that offensive linemen were able to open up against Liberty weren't open anymore. And when Ashton Jeanty tried to bounce it to the outside, linebackers that he was able to outrun in the regular season, all of a sudden, he'd get to the edge, scrape off, and there's an outside linebacker waiting for him. Or he would run the ISO with an end around with a block down on that outside linebacker, and he finds himself in space, and where ordinarily he was used to open grass to run through, all of a sudden there's two DBs right there waiting for him because they're as fast as he is now. And when it came time to step into the box against the Big Ten defense that they just had not seen anything the quality of, he was unable to do it. And I feel like a team like a Kansas State may very well be in that same mix. Run through the regular season, maybe 12-0, maybe 11-1. You win the conference, you get in, and now all of the sudden, you've spent 12 or 13 conference games in the regular season with Avery Johnson looking down the field at open wide receivers, and when nobody was open, being able to tuck it and run to all of a sudden looking down the field and having to make quarterback throws. Not, oh, there's a silver hat. He's open. Get it to him. Now all of a sudden it's, there's a silver hat. He just crossed it in route. He's got the wide receiver in his back pocket, but the wide receiver is on my side, not his side, so I'm going to have to throw it up and over, but there's a safety over the top, and he's got speed too. Now it's a quarterback. Now you have to quarterback, not just throw to the guy who's open. You got a quarterback. And now if he's going to tuck it and run after that, now all of a sudden there's linebackers on the other side of the football field that are as fast, if not faster, than him, and he hasn't been used to that all year. This is why, as cliche as it is, I often repeat the phrase, while some of them are gross and some of them are bad and some of them allow people to have backwards thoughts based on them, many cliches are cliches for a reason. This is why we lean so heavily on the iron sharpens iron cliche in college football. Because of moments like this. But realistically, looking at all of these teams, they'll go as far as the quarterbacks can carry them with the equipment around them to help them carry the load. I don't know what Arch Manning is going to be, but you know what Arch has going for him that Avery Johnson doesn't at Kansas State? NFL talent all over the football field. I don't know how far Julian Sayan's going to go at Ohio State. You know what Julian Sayan has going for him? Jeremiah Smith on the outside. A guy that, as long as you throw it within the radius of an extra long school bus, that guy can make circus catches. It is very similar to, I talked about Shedeur Sanders on a couple of shows this week, and his performance against Carolina. The big concern I had coming into the league was how many of the yards, of which there were a lot, that Shedeur threw for last year, how many of them are because Shedeur Sanders was a truly good quarterback, and how many of them were because Travis Hunter's a freak of nature? of the 74% completion percentage of Shedeur Sanders, which was phenomenal compared to any quarterback. How much of that 74% completion percentage was because occasionally Shedeur could lean into the old Travis is down there somewhere offense, throw it 90 yards in the air, and just let that freak go up and get it. At least some part of it. But the reason why everybody was kind of blown away by Shedeur in week number 1 was he didn't really rely on that like he relied on Travis Hunter. He was just making good throws. Oh, maybe he is a good quarterback. Maybe we did undervalue him because of Travis Hunter, because of Deion Sanders, whatever. It's about the equipment that's around the guy. Julian Saying Ohio State's got Jeremiah Smith. Cade Klubnik at Clemson has a mauler of an offensive line and, finally, a very good wide receiver room. Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, of the teams inside of the top 5, probably, outside of Julian Saying, probably the quarterback with the most questions about him. But do you know what Gunnar Stockton has going for him that a lot of the other questioned quarterbacks further down the list don't have going for them? Georgia players. That's what. Notre Dame, J.J. Carr. He's got Jeremiah Love behind him. When in doubt, hand it to Jeremiah. Love to see him go. We'll see what happens with that. Oregon, Dante Moore. What's he got going for him? Dan Lanning's play calling, and Oregon pulling in some of the better recruiting classes they've had in a very long time. Which is why I circle back around to Drew Aller and the Penn State Nittany Lions. And we're going to get away from this. We're going to talk some NFL coming up in the next couple of segments on the way out the door. But we continue our college football discussion because it is a big day in college football with the AP preseason top 25 dropping yesterday. What are we looking at with Penn State? Because, as I've mentioned, the narrative around that team on this show anyway is it feels like the conversation has changed. In years gone by, the conversation about the Penn State Nittany Lions has largely been, oh, James Franklin can't win the big one. Big game James can't win the big one. And this year, while that is still being asked by a lot of people, it does not seem to be central to the talk about Penn State like it has been in years gone by. It seems like people aren't really hammering the James Franklin narrative anymore. My producer on Saturday, Double D, David Dykstra, he is a Penn State guy. And he has been absolutely hilarious because he, like many Penn Staters, has just been driven into absolute madness by this football team since James Franklin showed up.
I was going to say, wait, Penn State people talk stuff?
No. Not James. He talks stuff about Penn State. He's like, I'm a Penn State guy, and I'll believe Penn State's going to get it done when they get it done. And I said, wait a minute, Double D. I'm on 50 different shows a week. I'm on different pods. I'm on different shows. I'm doing interviews. I'm at Media Days, ACC and SEC, which is where the majority of the competition for the Big Ten champ ultimately is going to come from. And even schools, even outlets, even media members from those conferences are like, yeah, I kind of think Penn State's actually a little scary this year. And the answer from them has been, oh, it's because of Drew Aller. He's proven. He took him to a Big Ten championship last year. He took him to the playoffs last year. He won a playoff game last year. But I've also said a few times, that is correct. And Penn State lost 3 games last year. They lost 1 in the regular season. They lost the Big Ten championship game to Oregon, and they lost to, they lost in the playoffs. They lost 3 games last year. And if you go back and you look at the 3 games that they lost last year, they lost a regular season contest 20-13 against your eventual national champions, the Buckeyes of Ohio State. In that game, Drew Aller went 12 of 20 for 146, no touchdowns, and an interception. Then they lost in the Big Ten championship game, 45-37. Sounds like it should be more impressive than that for Drew Aller. In that game, Drew Aller went 20 of 39, 226, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Got flat out outplayed by Dylan Gabriel, 22 of 32, 283, 4 tutties, no picks. And then you go look at the playoff loss. Remember, and I kept saying they won one. They won two because they smoked SMU, a team that a lot of people did not think deserved to be there after losing the ACC title game. Beat them 38-10. Drew Aller had 127 yards passing in that game. Then they beat Boise State 31-44. Drew Aller looked a lot better in that game. Again, against a Boise State team that very few people gave any credit for deserving to be there as the group of 5 rep. 13 of 25, 171, 3 touchdowns. They didn't have to throw the ball a lot. But then they lost 27-24 to Notre Dame to end the season. In that game, Drew Aller went 12 of 23, 135, no touchdowns and an interception. Here's the point that I'm making. In the 3 games that genuinely mattered the most, Ohio State in the regular season, they ended up getting some help to backdoor their way into the Big Ten championship. The Ohio State game in the regular season, Oregon in the Big Ten championship, and then against Notre Dame, who I would argue, with all due respect to SMU, because you know I'm a big Rhett Lashley guy, and you know I'm a big Kevin Jennings guy. That was a good team. But by the time that they got there, they did not look like a team that was a national championship team. And then they beat Boise State. Again, big Ashton Jeanty guy last year. But even I, as a big Ashton Jeanty guy, as a big everybody should have an opportunity to earn their way in and Boise did guy, there wouldn't have thought in my brain that they were beating Penn State. But when they came up against Notre Dame, when they came up against the first team that you went, here's their first challenge of the playoffs, Drew Aller stunk it up. So my question mark is, if we have dropped the narrative about James Franklin and his ability to win the big one, do we have it about Drew Aller? Or is he another quarterback, along with Arch and Gunner and Cade and Julian and JJ and Dante and Ty and Carson and Garrett, that we have questions about their ability to win the biggest game on the schedule? I don't think Penn State is as clear and away the number 2 favorite as this poll makes them seem like they are. All right, we're going to talk some NFL, continuing to overreact from the weekend's preseason game. We do that when we come back on The Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Be right back, guys. Stay right there for me. Texter on. Damn.
That's 2, man.
God, you smoked me last week. It was like 4-1 last week.
And think about it, short week.
Yeah, and I only got one day for you to make it up to tomorrow.
Still got, what, 37 minutes left in this hour?
Yeah, got 2 segments left here. Got a full day tomorrow. And Lonzo suffers from senioritis more than I do, so we'll see if it catches up with him
Well,
more.
there's also this thing where I could just not use my mic at all, just not talk the entire show, and win.
How bad do you want the victory, man?
I mean, sometimes.
Texter to the Hub City Spartanburger text line 844-326-3663 says, quote, here is an overreaction. J.J. McCarthy will win the MVP this year, taking the Vikings to 15 wins at a Super Bowl. I mean, a Viking fan can dream of something we have never had. Yeah, I think that's an overreaction a little bit there, dear Texter, but I also understand sheer relentless and unbridled optimism.
Gonna be missing Sammy.
We'll see. Again, I've had my theories. My theory is Kevin O'Connell's offense combined with arguably the best 1-2 or maybe 1-2-3, maybe best overall wide receiver room in the National Football League allows for mediocre quarterbacks to look good quarterbacks to look great, and great quarterbacks, if you stumble into one, to look incredible. I will say,
could have swore I saw somewhere that he didn't do too well in his first preseason.
Hey, he looked all right. He had some dimes, and he had some not so great plays. But didn't
he throw to the other team?
Again, he had some not so great throws. I would also point out though, if you only tuned in for the first drive or two of Shedeur Sanders, you probably walked away with the same impression. But Shedeur ended up looking really good, especially in the second quarter. JJ looked fine, but it was the first time that, he suited up for one preseason game last year. That's when he got hurt. But it was the first time that J.J. McCarthy suited up for an extended period of time. I don't expect greatness out of him or any other rookie quarterback coming into the National Football League. It's nice when you get it, Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels, Joe Burrow, but it's not frequent, right? This is why we know about Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels, C.J. Stroud. Because when they come in and have an incredible year out of the gate, it is the exception, not the rule, to rookie quarterbacks who are thrown feet first into the fire right out of the gate. But if you're going to be thrown straight into the fire out of the gate, it feels like the Minnesota Vikings are a real good place for that to happen. Because Kevin O'Connell got Kirk Cousins paid. Oh, BT Dubs, just as a brief aside, and we'll talk about this a little bit later and probably after this week's preseason game, where we get to see guys, now that they've had a little bit of time to get used to actual competitive football across the line of scrimmage from guys wearing a different helmet and uniform combination. I think this week we'll get a little bit better evaluation about Shedeur, et cetera, et cetera. But I would say, as the brief aside, apparently Kirk Cousins is actually outplaying Michael Penix Jr. in Falcons camp. Now, I did have Abe Gordon of 92.9 The Game in Atlanta on my show on Saturday on the BetMGM network, and Abe said those rumors, those reports are a little unfounded. Abe's out there at practice every day, and he said that the guy who wrote that report, the national writer who wrote up the report that Kirk Cousins is outplaying Michael Penix, he said, I saw him at one practice, and it happened to be a practice where Kirk Cousins did have a day. He said, I've been at every practice. Kirk Cousins is not outplaying Michael Penix right now. At the best, their level. Michael Penix may be a slight advantage. He just happened to come out for the one day. But put that aside, we'll talk Atlanta Falcons next week once we get another week of Michael Penix Jr. Playing full speed National Football League football. As far as the rookie goes, yeah, I'd like to think that J.J. McCarthy, with a year, although he could not play, to sit, to watch, to participate, to take in, I would like to think in that spot that there is some degree of experience, and then you add in the Kevin O'Connell offense, which I've been very high on, because not only did he get Kirk Cousins paid, he got Sam Darnold paid. Like Sam Darnold got paid like a franchise quarterback after playing in Minnesota. And again, you could argue, maybe Sam Darnold really is that good. Maybe Sam Darnold with the Jets was screwed because that franchise is a trash heap. Maybe Sam Darnold with the Panthers was screwed because that franchise, at the time, was a trash heap. And this is the first time that Sam Darnold as I have made the argument about Trevor Lawrence, as I have made the argument about Bryce Young, the first time that Sam Darnold had any level of stability within the franchise that he's quarterbacking was with the Vikings. And he turned it into a multi-million-dollar contract with the Seahawks this year. We'll come back to that. The reason I brought this up is because Bill Simmons and The Athletic both put out their National Football League quarterback rankings for this year. And I found them to some degree interesting in terms of where they are matched up and where they are not. Let's start with The Athletics. The Athletic says 6 general managers, 6 assistant general managers, 6 former general managers, 5 NFL executives, 8 NFL head coaches, 19 assistant and position coaches, including 15 coordinators, comprised Mike Sando, who covers the NFL for The Athletic, a 50-person panel. And he took votes on, from these 50 people, he asked them to tier rank 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 the starting quarterbacks around the National Football League. And then he averaged them out to decide who goes where. 5 points for tier 1, 4 for 2, 3 for 3, 2 for 4, 1 for 5. Add all the points together, find out where they rank with everybody else. And here's how they ranked. 2 quarterbacks tied for the most points in the NFL. Those 2 quarterbacks are Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Josh Allen was 3rd. Lamar Jackson was 4th. Matt Stafford was 5th. Those are the 5 quarterbacks, according to the Athletics poll, which they claim comes from 50 people, comprised of GMs, assistant GMs, former GMs, execs, head coaches, 15 coordinators, 19 total assistant coaches. The top tier is Mahomes and Burrow are 1A. 1B is Allen, Jackson, and Stafford. Zoe, I don't have a problem with anybody in that list or not in that list, to be honest with you.
I thought you would complain about the tier, that maybe it should add one more to it.
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. Listen, I've said a few times already. I honestly think Josh Allen is the best thrower of the football in the National Football League, just purely based on his ability to take the ball from his hand into the hands of his receivers. I think Joe Burrow is the best in the game. But Patrick Mahomes, I think, is the best as far as having a masterful knowledge of the offense, running it, spreading the ball around, keeping defenses on their toes, a guy who is slippery, not fast, not an incredible scrambler, but very slippery like Drew Brees when he gets going, which is something I don't think Joey Burrow has in the bag. I got no problem with Josh Allen checking in at number 3. I am sure that many of the people on this 50-person panel likely put Josh Allen in this spot because he ain't won nothing yet. Whereas Joe B, who ain't won nothing yet, has been to a Super Bowl. At least Josh Allen has not. You could argue the same is probably true with Lamar Jackson. And then there's Matt Stafford. And I think Matt Stafford is probably the one guy on this tier list that is not necessarily there because he is the most physically gifted at any one thing, but it's more along the lines of, and I think this is true, I think if you took most, capital M, most, not all, but most of the quarterbacks from the second tier down and put them on the Rams are a team that are a very trendy pick to win the NFC West. The Rams are a pick that is a very trendy pick to go back to the Super Bowl and represent the NFC.
I don't know about that because there were other quarterbacks on the Rams and they couldn't win a Super Bowl recently until someone else went over there.
That's why I think Matt Stafford is in the first tier, because I think you could take most of the quarterbacks in tier 2 and below, not all, but most of them, drop them into the Rams. Everything else stays the same, and I do not think the Rams are a pick, even a trendy pick, even an upset trendy dog pick to win that division or to go to the Super Bowl. With Matt Stafford back there, they are. And good for Matt Stafford. Tier number 2, according to the Athletics 50-person panel, Jayden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, C.J. Stroud, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. They have it tier number 2. Does anybody jump off that list, Alonzo, as either somebody who is worthy of being tier 1 or based on relative comparison to everybody else in that tier, worthy of being dropped down to tier 3?
All right, I looked at the list earlier. I think it's pretty accurate.
That's fair.
And especially when you figure where the list is coming from. So
I don't really have a lot of problems. I would say, for instance, CJ Stroud. Let me see a bounce back year this year. CJ Stroud doesn't have a bounce back year this year. I think he drops to tier 3. If he has a bounce back year, he stays in tier 2. Maybe if he has an incredible year, he goes up to tier 1. But I would say right now, tier 2, I might bounce him to tier 3. Outside of that, I would say Brock Purdy I would drop to tier 3 too, but that's more my working theory on who he is as a quarterback than it is proven track record. We'll get a real taste of who he is this year. Tier 3, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence, Geno Smith, Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, Drake May, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, Kirk Cousins. I want to have a problem with this. I don't. I don't think Caleb Williams is the lack of success is his fault. I blamed it on Eberflus and the Bears. I think Bryce Young has certainly worked his way into tier 3, and I think he's well on his way to tier 2. Kirk Cousins, no problem with him. Trevor Lawrence, same as I felt about Caleb Williams. Geno Smith, in the last 6 seasons, here's a fun stat. I didn't know this till it was pointed out to me. In the last six seasons, Geno Smith has the 6th most wins of all quarterbacks in the NFL. That's dumb. That's a dumb stat. That should not be right. I think Bo Nix deserves to be there. I think Sam Darnold deserves to be there.
That's why Geno Smith still has a job.
That's exactly correct. Tier 4, very quickly, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, Daniel Jones, Joe Flacco, Anthony Rich, and Spencer Rattler. Tier 5, the only quarterback in Tier 5, Kenny Pickett. Good luck, Browns fans. Take a break. Back after this. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate.
I might move Justin Fields up a tier, but, that's...
I can't yet, but I think he will be by week 6 or 7.
Admittedly, that's bias, but still. Why does, when people who are not from Ohio say Ohio, it doesn't sound right to me?
Could you have an accent?
It's not a hard word. Of course I do. Everyone has an accent. If I went back home and started talking like everybody back home, you probably wouldn't be able to tell a difference. So, the one difference for me is projection, and that's just from radio. So, although I have a really loud family.
Should be in a tier all their own. No, Cruz, they shouldn't, because wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. Are you telling me Brad Johnson is in the top tier of all-time quarterbacks? No. Are you telling me Dan Marino's not? No. Wins and losses, including Super Bowls, are not a quarterback stat.
Who's Dan Marino?
One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game.
Mm-hmm. You sound like an old guy.
Hey, listen, if I agree with the olds, it's probably a good take.
Well, no. Kids of the day, 20s, maybe even 30s, have no idea who Dan Marino is because he didn't win anything. So,
And that's all that matters.
And he is being replaced in the record books, which means he's not being mentioned.
Yes, from a time in the 70s where you were legally allowed to shoot wide receivers when they tried to catch the ball.
That's not true. That was the 60s. The game has evolved a great deal. But really, again, if you're not in the record books, if you're not number 1 in the record books, why do people, unless someone says Dan Marino, I'm like, who's that? And they go back and research it. And I don't think everyone does that. There will come a time when a lot of your favorite players, people won't remember them. If they're not top tier, if they didn't win Super Bowls, and if they don't still have records. It's just called time.
If somebody says to me that a guy is a guy or a guy is not a guy, and they base it without context or the ability to discuss the context of wins and losses, record-wise, Super Bowl-wise, whatever, I lose interest in that conversation.
As most old people do when they're talking to young people. I mean,
Because old people believe they're right. And I am.
I wanted to use the second part of Bron Breaker's quote, but if I did,
I haven't watched yet.
he says, "And you're 40. I'll kick your." Yeah, so I couldn't use that part because that could be an HR violation. I'm not going.
Why would it be an HR violation?
Because if I throw that up there and never mind.
I'll use it. I think it's great.
Yeah, you can use it because I'm not 40, but I can't use it towards you because you are 40, and it would sound like I'm threatening to kick your butt, and I'm not going to do that. Because on a bad day, it may seem like that, and that would get me in trouble. So, just trying to retire someday. Another 10 years, Dan Marino will just not be mentioned at all. He's already to the point where he's barely mentioned now. I get why that offends you, but that's just sports. Sports continue on. They don't stop. And so that means records are going to be broken. People are going to be forgotten. Unless you have a bust in Canton or you were a Super Bowl winner. That's the only reason why you remember Brad Johnson. If he hadn't won a Super Bowl, you wouldn't remember him, period. That made him memorable.
I don't disagree, but that's not the reason. There's a difference between memorable versus in the conversation. He's not in the conversation. When I list top 10, 15, 20, 25 quarterbacks of all time, not in the list, even with a ring.
That's also subjective because that's your opinion of those.
Does literally anyone have Brad Johnson in their top 10 quarterbacks? Do you? You're the only guy that I would think would. Is Brad Johnson a top 10 all-time quarterback?
No, probably his kids, maybe. I don't know, maybe.
The Rob Brown Show on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the Great Alonzo, and you. 844-326-3663 is the number if you want to jump on up in her. Before we call it a day on the radio broadcast, we have talked quite a bit this morning about college football as the AP Top 25 poll, preseason Top 25 poll dropped last night. If you have any thoughts on it, we'd love to hear them from you as we have got a gazillion things to talk about between here and the start of the college football season. We have talked about our top 10, who is too high, who is too low. I have a couple of thoughts on a couple of different squads inside the top 25. The first take that we discussed earlier in the show is very simply that Clemson LSU is going to be a banger. But you know what's going to be even better than that game? Even better than that game. The message board of whatever team loses that game. I mean, it is going to be, and I will acknowledge that message boards are filled to the brim with the loudest, the most vocal, and ordinarily some of the more, shall we say, overly passionate of a school's fan base.
You didn't say that. Tell me you did not just say that.
And I am not saying it in the, like, Paul Feinbaum lowest common denominator of sports fans way. I'm saying if you are going to end that game and you take an L and your first thought is, let me hit the message boards, you're my type of fan, man. Like, you're my type of guy. I am going to tell you that as we get into the fourth quarter of that game, I am going to have a computer open to the message boards, the primary, the biggest, the most well-known message boards of both of those teams. And I am going to, whichever team loses, Clemson or LSU, whichever team loses that game, I am going straight to their message board. I am going to pour myself about 24 solid ounces of brown liquor, and I am going to drink in the sadness and despair of those fans like the nectar of the college football gods. It's going to be, man, it's going to be spectacular. I can't wait. And those preseason rankings, all they do is very much emphasize the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of college football fans entering this season. The teams that caught a ranking number have aspirations. The teams like LSU and Clemson, who caught a ranking number that is a single digit, have very high aspirations. And I want to point out that if I wanted to be a good person, then what I would do is I would say to both of those fan bases, assuming one team doesn't slam their own genitalia in the door and cost themselves the game, assuming that one team genuinely loses a good football game between two football teams, if I was a good person, what I would do is I would get on said message boards and I would go, guys, do not panic, because when the AP poll drops on Tuesday morning, you're still going to be a top 10 team, maybe a top 15 team. LSU, at worst, you're going to be like 16 or 17. You are still very much alive. And on top of that, assuming that the losing team doesn't get the doors blown off of them, that team is going to have what some of you hate is referred to as a quality loss, a high quality L. If it is LSU, not just did you lose to a top 4 team in the United States of America, you lost to a top 4 team on the road. If you are a Clemson fan, you did not just lose a game, you lost to a top 10 team in the game. Now, here is what I will say. I do think there is a little bit more to be lost by Clemson if they lose to LSU than I think the other way around. Because I have already said a number of times, I think the ACC is undervalued for what it is this year. I think the ACC is going to be a better conference than most of you are giving it credit for. I think I can look at Georgia Tech and say that's a good team. I can look at Louisville and go, that team might put up 45 a game. I think there are some very good football teams across the ACC. So Clemson is going to have, I think, by the time that they play them, at least a couple of top 25 teams that they will have an opportunity in conference to make up for. LSU, on the other hand, is going to have a lot of top 25 teams and a couple of top 10 teams, top 15 teams to make up for if they were to drop the ball against the Clemson Tigers. So while a loss is probably more dangerous for LSU because they have more potential losses down the line on paper than Clemson does, on the flip side, they also have much more in the way of sterling opportunities to make up for that loss with top 25, top 20, top 15, top 10 teams. Clemson does not. So I do think if you really want to go like a few layers deep with this conversation, I do think a home win for Clemson will mean more in the grand scheme of things than a road loss for LSU because, as has been mentioned a number of times, if I am right in saying that, yes, the ACC is going to be, at the end of this year, I think, proven better than anybody's giving it credit for entering the year, if I am right about the Southeastern Conference, if I am right about the SEC, and it truly does prove itself to be the best conference in the history of conferences in terms of playing football, I have already floated the theory. I think the SEC strength this year will be worth one victory in the bowl rankings at the end of the year. What I mean by that is this. I think a 10-2 SEC team theoretically could talk its way in past an 11-1 Big 12 team, an 11-1 ACC team, maybe an 11-1 Big 10 team. I think that a 9-3 SEC team, I think a 9-3 SEC team can talk its way past a 10-2 Big 12 team, can talk its way past a 10-2 ACC team, and maybe a 10-2 Big 10 team. I think that being in the SEC this year, if I am right about how good this conference is going to be this year. And I acknowledge that maybe I'm wrong. And maybe at the end of this year, I got to circle back around and go, hey, guys, I'm a big fat dummy. I fell for the propaganda extravaganza of the Southeastern Conference this year. But if I didn't, and I am right, and this conference is as good as I suspect it is going to be this year, then I think that LSU maybe has room for that loss and can still get in. And on top of that, I think they will have room for that loss and still be able to get in, assuming that the team that has one fewer loss than them isn't Clemson if they are competing for an at-large spot. I also acknowledge that it is much more likely that LSU will be arguing for an at-large spot than Clemson will be. If Clemson does not make it to the ACC championship game, or more importantly, win the ACC championship game, unless they go into that game at 12-0, maybe 11-1. I think if Clemson goes into the ACC title game at 10-2 or worse, and they do not win it, I think this year there's enough stacked elsewhere that you will not SMU your way in this year like you did last year. Like SMU did last year, not you, obviously. But that to me means that I think that while there is pressure on both teams for different reasons, Brian Kelly to prove he's the right guy for the job, Dabo Swinney to prove that his philosophy of college football still works. I think that just in the perspective of making it to the college football playoffs, I believe that there is more pressure on Clemson than there is LSU because they have less runway to make it up down the line.
And now, the Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
All right, time to see what is trending, what's Xing across the known universe. The first thing is Myles Garrett.
Okay, Myles Garrett is Xing. There's two reasons it might be. I'm going to take a stab at which one it actually is. I am going to say that it is trending because apparently Myles Garrett was pulled over for doing 100 and a 60. You would think that just a couple of weeks after Shedeur Sanders got pulled over for pretty similar numbers, if I recall correctly, like 100 and a 60. You would think that.
I think he might
don't do that.
I think he might have hit 110, but yeah.
Whatever it is. It's a lot and a lot less than that miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I'm one of these guys that, like, if I hear about an athlete drinking and driving, I'm like, hey, dumbass. There is literally in any given bar 100 sober people who would be honored to give a Cleveland Brown a ride home, a Georgia Bulldog a ride home. Maybe don't do that. I get the desire to drive your own car, especially if you are the type of dude who has multiple $1 million and you buy that Ferrari or that Lambo or that Porsche or that whatever. But, dude, you got to know, listen, you can literally go to short tracks. They are all around America and give them money to go drive your car as fast as you want to drive it. Just do that. Just stop. Just do that. That being said, none of these guys get in trouble that tags them for any length of time. They pay $100, do like 5 hours of community service, and they're off the hook. So it's kind of on us a little.
That's true. And hopefully it doesn't end up being an accident or something going that fast. All right. The next thing that's Xing is Halle Berry.
Oh, man. You know, I grew up an Atlanta Braves fan, and one of my favorite players of all time was a cat by the name of David Justice. One of my favorite Braves of all time. And I very much remember way back in the day, there was a Flintstones live-action movie with John Goodman playing the titular role of Fred. And he was married, in that movie, the secretary, and I don't remember what her role in the movie was because I haven't seen it like since then, but Halle Berry played that role. And she was, at the time, even like a 7-year-old Rob Brown show. Remembers looking at his dad and being like,
you just called yourself the Rob Brown?
Yeah, I don't know why I did that.
Yeah,
I do.
Weird.
I was looking at my Twitter handle.
Okay, all right.
I remember looking at my father and being like, that lady's real pretty. And my dad going, that's David Justice's wife. And me going, I knew I liked that guy. Well, David Justice and Halle Berry a few years later would end up getting divorced. And David Justice said, I don't know if it was on a podcast or unprompted or not, but piece of advice, David Justice, and this is free, shut up. David Justice said the reason that he and Halle Berry got divorced was because he looked at Halle Berry and could not see Halle Berry being the mother of his children because he wanted somebody who was a little bit more matronly, was a little bit more motherly around the house. David Justice, on the list of just absolutely bleep poor decision makings I've heard over the years. My guy, you, in terms of non-criminal affairs, have just skyrocketed to the top. You had peak and Halle Berry's still a smoke show. You had peak mid-90s Halle Berry, and you decided this multi-million-dollar smoke show of a supermodel actress, one of the most famous women on the face of the planet. You know, I don't see her folding my laundry. You dumbass.
By the way, no, he said she didn't do laundry. She didn't cook. She didn't do it.
That's my point.
So he said basically she's a slob, and most guys don't care.
I don't think he said I think he meant she's not the woman around the house.
You need to look at it a little bit closer. I think he basically said she was a slob.
I can't bring myself to do it because I'm going to tell you right now. If I had peak 1990s Halle Berry, she could light my entire bleeping house on fire, and I'd figure out how to get over it.
Okay, and finally,
peak 90s Halle Berry was untouchable.
Finally, quickly, last thing that is Xing is Taylor Swift.
Tay-Tay Xing because she dropped along with Jason and Travis yesterday that she will be on an episode of New Heights. More importantly, for those of us who are still Swifties, dropped the name of her new album. She's got a new album coming out. She dropped the name of it yesterday. I don't know what it is. But she dropped it.
Life of a Showgirl or something like that?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Here's what I do know, and I'm calling the shot now, Lonzo. Taylor Swift on New Heights will be the most listened to podcast in the history of podcasts anywhere all the time.
I can't wait. I'm guessing it doesn't drop till tomorrow, but maybe it's today.
No idea.
Who knows?
Buckeye Mike says LSU will finish 8-4 or worse. I will bet you lunch on that. Buckeye Mike, I'm not taking that bet because I'm out on LSU. I'm out on Brian Kelly. You know, I'm out. I'm not in. I'm out. Have a great day. Don't drink and drive. I'll punch you in the face. See you back here tomorrow to do it all over again, but better on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Up. Stay later. Hi, guys. You know, Cruz. Hot take. I agree with Cam. Hot take. Let me bring this mic over so you can hear.
Yeah, you can do that.
Cruz, hot take. I agree with Cam Newton. I do not think that Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. Here's the thing. I don't know why, A, that is an insult, or B, why that matters. Jalen Hurts has been with the Philadelphia Eagles to 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. And not only did he win the last one, but in winning the last one, he and the Eagles played so well that the conversation is not just, are the Eagles good enough to run it back? The conversation now is legitimately, are the Chiefs cooked? Did Jalen Hurts and the Eagles finish the dynasty? I don't think the answer is yes. I think the answer is no. But that is a peak off season, big time media talking head, talking
making
point.
it hard for me to add. I'm just saying.
Dial in, Chief. So, I don't have an issue.
Call me Chief.
If we are looking at NFL quarterbacks, I would say I would take ahead of Jalen Hurts. I would take Patrick Mahomes. I would take Joe Burrow. I would take Josh Allen. I would take Lamar Jackson. I would take Matt Stafford. I would take, honestly, hot take, I'd take Baker Mayfield ahead of Jalen Hurts. Is that a hot take? Is that too hot takey? I don't think it is. He's won the division like 3 times in a row.
Yep.
I would take Baker Mayfield ahead of him. Hot take, I'd take Jayden Daniels ahead of him. Now, that one's a little more cautious tentative because we got to see if there's a sophomore slump for Jayden Daniels like a lot of people are predicting. I don't think there will be. But I would take Jayden Daniels ahead of Jalen Hurts.
By the way, the Punisher was just hanging out at their camp.
I did see that.
John Barathol, big Washington fan.
I could be argued into taking Jared Goff ahead of Jalen Hurts. That might be it, though. That might be the list. I think that's the list. I would have him maybe like 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that range. Baker might be a little too hot takey. The NFC South is trash, and I'm a Panthers fan saying that. No. That's a perfectly fine reason to feel that way. I'm not arguing with that. That's why I said it's hot. I acknowledge taking Baker Mayfield ahead of him is very hot takey. I'm not going to push back on calling me out for saying that's hot takey. I think it might be hot takey. But
big Baker fan. So, I mean,
but I think it's justifiable to say that there is an argument for it. Is that fair? That there's an argument for Baker Mayfield over Jalen Hurts? I don't know. All right. That's going to be it for us. Got to do stuff. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you didn't, I don't know what to tell you. Come back tomorrow. We'll try harder. Or we won't. I don't know. It's our last day this week. Probably not.
Probably won't. Tomorrow,
Probably
yeah, we're probably not going to.
Have yourselves a wonderful day. See you back here tomorrow. Tell your friends about us. We're trying to get rich, famous, and preferably retired. Hasta luego.